The punch came so fast, I didn't even see it coming. One moment, I was adjusting the delicate lace of my wedding gown, smiling as my new husband Jack whispered something about how we'd sneak out of our own reception in 20 minutes. The next, my brother Ryan's fist connected with my jaw with a crack that echoed in the suddenly silent ballroom. Pain exploded through my face, a white-hot, blinding sensation that made the world tilt sideways. I stumbled backward, my heels catching on the hem of my dress, and would have fallen if Jack hadn't caught me with one steady arm. Blood, shockingly red against the white lace of my bodice, dripped from my mouth where I'd bitten my tongue. The entire wedding party, 200 of our closest friends and family, froze. Champagne glasses halted mid-sip. The band's jazz number trailed off into discordant notes. Every eye in the Grand Venetian ballroom was fixed on us, on Ryan standing there with his fist still clenched, on me bleeding against my husband. What the hell, Ryan? My father's voice broke the silence first, but it was Jack who spoke next, his voice so calm, so measured it was more terrifying than any shout. He kept one arm around me, his other hand already pulling a crisp white handkerchief from his dress blues uniform pocket. He pressed it gently to my bleeding mouth, his eyes never leaving my brother. "You just assaulted an officer's spouse," Jack said, each word precise and cold. "Face the wall, now." Ryan blinked, his drunken haze clearing just enough for confusion to show. "What?" "Jack, this is family. Face the wall." Jack's voice didn't rise, but it carried the weight of command. I'd heard that tone before, when he was briefing his squadron, when he was in pilot mode. It was the voice that expected to be obeyed. To my shock, Ryan actually took a stumbling step backward, his hands coming up. "Look, I'm sorry, I had too much to drink. Two men in suits I didn't recognize materialized from the crowd. They moved with economical grace, positioning themselves between Ryan and us. Military bearing, I realized. Jack's friends or colleagues. Ryan Thomas Anderson, the taller of the two men, said, his voice carrying, "By the authority of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, you're under restraint for assault upon a military dependent." My mother's scream pierced the air. "No, Jack, please, he's your brother now. This is a family matter." Jack ignored her, his attention on me. "Can you stand?" he murmured, his eyes searching mine. I nodded, though my head was spinning. The pain in my jaw was spreading through my entire skull. "I think it's broken," I managed through the handkerchief. "Medic," Jack called, and a third man in a suit, younger, with a short-cropped military haircut, hurried forward with a small kit. The surreal nature of the moment crashed over me. My wedding. My beautiful, perfect wedding at the oceanfront resort in Virginia Beach. Jack in his Marine Corps dress blues, me in a couture gown that took 6 months to make. We'd said our vows an hour ago. The sun had been setting over the Atlantic. Now blood was soaking the front of my dress, and my brother was being handcuffed by military police. "Jack, wait." I grabbed his arm as the medic, apparently actually a Navy corpsman named Davis, gently probed my jaw. "He's drunk." "He didn't mean he broke your jaw, Maya," Jack said flatly. His eyes, usually the warm blue of the summer sky, were the color of Arctic ice. "Look at you." I touched my face, wincing. The left side was already swelling, a hot, tight balloon expanding beneath my skin. "Probable mandibular fracture," Corpsman Davis confirmed. "We need to get you to Portsmouth, the Naval Hospital." My mother was at my side now, her face pale. "No, we'll take her to Centara, Jack, please." "She's my spouse now," Jack said. "She has military insurance, and this is a military matter." The words hung in the air. A military matter, not a family spat, not a drunken mistake at a wedding. A military matter. Ryan seemed to finally understand. His face, flushed with alcohol and anger moments before, went ashen. "Jack, Captain West." "Sir, I apologize. I lost my temper. My sister and you assaulted the wife of a United States Marine Corps officer," Jack said, finally turning to face him fully, "during what could be construed as a military-adjacent social function, while I'm in uniform. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Ryan's lawyer brain finally kicked in. I could see it happening. The shift from drunken brother to criminal defense attorney. This is excessive. I'll plead to disorderly conduct. Pay a fine. Maya won't press charges. I don't have a choice, I whispered, but no one heard me. The Commonwealth of Virginia might let you plead that down, Jack said, but the UCMJ won't. He nodded to the two men. Take him to the brig at Little Creek. The brig. My father finally pushed through the crowd. At 65, Robert Anderson was still an imposing man, built like the college linebacker he once was. Like hell you will. Jack, this ends now. Uncuff my son. The staring match between my father and my husband of 2 hours could have frozen the ocean outside. Two alpha males, both used to being in charge. My father built a real estate empire from nothing. Jack flew F-35s off aircraft carriers and led men into combat. With all due respect, sir, Jack said, and the sir was pure military courtesy, not familial respect. Your son committed a felony under federal military law. He's coming with us. He's family, my mother cried. Our family, not your military pawn. I flinched. Mom, don't. Jack didn't even blink. Ma'am, your son just fractured my wife's jaw. If this were a bar, he'd be in jail right now. The fact that it's a wedding doesn't change the law. Your wife. My mother spat the words. You married her 4 hours ago. We're her family. We raised her. We paid for this wedding. And there it was, the money. Always the money with my family. Mom, please. I tried again, but the pain was making me nauseous. Let's go, ma'am. Corpsman Davis said gently, taking my elbow. We need to get that jaw looked at. The crowd parted as Davis led me through, Jack on my other side. I saw the faces, friends from college looking shocked. Jack's squadron mates with grim expressions, my Aunt Beverly crying, my cousin Mark filming on his phone. The perfect wedding. Now a viral scandal in the making. At the doorway, I looked back. Ryan was being led out a side entrance, his head down, the handcuffs gleaming in the ballroom chandeliers. My parents were following, my father shouting about calling his lawyers, my mother sobbing. Then we were in the hallway, the music from the ballroom starting up again, the band awkwardly filling the silence we'd left behind. Jack, I said as we moved toward the lobby. Not now, Maya. His voice was tight. Let's get you medical attention first. But Ryan will be processed according to regulations. He pushed through the resort's front doors into the warm Virginia night. 2 more men in suits waited by a dark SUV with government plates. This is out of my hands now. But you're the officer he assaulted. Jack stopped, turning me to face him. The left side of my face was swelling shut, but I could still see the anger in his eyes. Controlled, banked, but burning. Listen to me, he said, his voice low. Your brother didn't just hit you. He hit the wife of a Marine Corps captain in the presence of 2 admirals, a colonel, and 17 other commissioned officers. He did it at a wedding that's been in the base newsletter for months. This isn't a family dispute anymore. This is the United States military justice system, and it has its own rules. The corpsman opened the SUV door. Sir, ma'am, we should go. I let them help me into the back seat. Jack slid in beside me, his uniform crisp and perfect except for the blood on the sleeve where he'd caught me. As the SUV pulled away from the resort, I saw my parents through the window, standing on the steps, watching us go. My mother's face was a mask of betrayal, my father's of fury. My dress is ruined, I said stupidly, looking down at the blood on the white lace. Jack didn't answer. He took my hand, his grip firm. It's going to be okay. Is it? I looked at him, at the man I'd married just hours before, the man I thought I knew. You just had my brother arrested at our wedding. He hit you, Jack said, and for the first time, I heard the crack in his composure, a raw edge of something. Rage, pain, protectiveness. He hit you hard enough to break bone, Maya, in front of everyone. What was I supposed to do? I don't know. I leaned my head back against the seat, closing my eyes. The adrenaline was fading, leaving the pain in sharp, brilliant focus. But you just divided my family in half. He did that, Jack said, not me. The SUV merged onto the highway, heading for the Naval Hospital. My wedding night, This wasn't how it was supposed to be. There was supposed to be champagne and dancing, and Jack carrying me over the threshold of our hotel suite. Not emergency rooms and military police and my brother in handcuffs. What happens now? I asked. Now, Jack said, his voice returning to that calm, controlled officer tone. The machine starts. The JAG office will be notified. Charges will be drawn up. Ryan will have a hearing, probably an Article 32 hearing, since this is serious. Article 32? Like a grand jury, Jack explained. They decide if there's enough evidence for a court-martial. Court-martial. The word was foreign, terrifying, like a military trial. Yes, for a punch at a wedding. For assault on a military dependent by a civilian on a military officer, Jack corrected. It's a different thing, Maya. The military takes this seriously, especially now, with all the attention on how we handle assault. I thought of the #MeToo movement, of the scandals at the academies, of the Pentagon's very public efforts to show they were cleaning house. My brother had picked the worst possible time to lose his temper. He could go to jail. My voice was small. Yes. For how long? Depends on the charges. Simple assault? Maybe a year. Aggravated assault? Up to 8 years. If they really want to make an example, he didn't finish. 8 years. The number hung in the air between us. Jack, he's my brother. Who broke your jaw? Jack's hand tightened on mine. Look at me. I turned, wincing at the pain. I love you, he said, his eyes fierce. I married you today. My job is to protect you. From everyone, even your family. But no buts. He cut me off gently. This is the line, Maya. He crossed it. There's no going back. The SUV pulled up to the Naval Hospital emergency entrance. Corpsman Davis was out first, opening my door, offering a hand. As I stepped out, the reality of it all hit me. The pain, the betrayal, the fact that my perfect life had shattered in one moment. My brother's face, twisted with anger, the crack of his fist against my bone. The look in his eyes, not just drunken rage, but something older, deeper. Something that had been festering for years. Jack came around the SUV, taking my arm from Davis. I've got her. Sir. Davis nodded, falling back. We walked into the bright lights of the ER. A nurse took one look at us, me in my bloody wedding dress, Jack in his dress blues, and hurried over. Right this way, Captain, ma'am. They put me in a private room. Jack stayed with me, standing guard at the door as the doctors came and went. X-rays were taken. My jaw was indeed fractured. They talked about wiring it shut, about surgery, about 6 to 8 weeks of recovery. Through the haze of pain medication, I watched Jack, my husband of a few hours, the man who'd just upended my entire life, the man who'd chosen me over my family without hesitation. You could have handled it differently, I murmured as the doctor prepared a syringe of something that would make the pain fade. Jack came to my side, taking my hand again. How? I don't know, but there had to be another way. He hit you, Jack repeated, as if those 3 words explained everything. And maybe they did. In his world, in the world of honor and codes and brotherhood he lived in, maybe they did. My parents will never forgive you, I whispered. I know. Or me. He leaned down, his lips brushing my forehead. Then they're not the family you need. The medication pulled me under then, dragging me down into darkness. The last thing I saw was Jack's face above me, his expression unreadable. The last thing I felt was his hand in mine. And the last thing I thought before the darkness took me completely was, what have we done? Somewhere else in Virginia Beach, Ryan Anderson sat on a bare bunk in a holding cell at the Naval Amphibious Base, Little Creek. The alcohol had fully worn off, replaced by a pounding headache and a growing, sickening dread. The 2 Marines who'd brought him in had been professional, almost polite. They'd processed him, taken his fingerprints, his photograph, his personal effects. They'd given him a jumpsuit to change into. They'd asked if he wanted to make a phone call. He'd asked for his lawyer, not his family lawyer, but the criminal defense attorney he kept on retainer for his real estate clients, Paul Mercer. He'd called him, his hands shaking so badly he'd almost dropped the phone. Ryan. Paul's voice had been sleepy. It was after midnight. What's wrong? I'm in the brig at Little Creek. A pause. The naval base? What the hell did you do? I punched my sister at her wedding. Another longer pause. Okay, that's stupid. But that's not military jurisdiction. What aren't you telling me? Her new husband, Jack West. He's a Marine captain, fighter pilot. He said, I assaulted an officer's spouse. They arrested me under some military code. The silence on the other end of the line had been so complete. Ryan thought the call had dropped. Then, oh, Ryan. Oh, you idiot. What does that mean? The Uniform Code of Military Justice. If you assaulted a dependent of a service member and they want to push it, they can prosecute you federally in military court. Ryan's stomach dropped. What does that mean? Penalty. Depends on the charge. But if they go for aggravated assault, up to 8 years, Ryan. 8 years. The room spun. For a punch. For assaulting the wife of a Marine officer in front of what I'm guessing were other officers. Paul said, his voice grim. They're going to make an example of you. The military's been getting hammered in the press about not taking assault seriously. You just handed them a perfect case to show how tough they are. I was drunk. It was a family thing. She was being a bitch about the business, and I lost my temper. Doesn't matter. Not to them. Paul sighed. I'll be there first thing in the morning. Don't talk to anyone. Not the guards. Not anyone. Understand? Yeah, I understand. He'd hung up, then sat on the bunk, his head in his hands. 8 years. His career. His life. The Anderson Properties empire he'd been supposed to inherit, that his father had built from nothing, that his sister had somehow ended up controlling. Anger surged again, hot and familiar. Maya. Perfect Maya. Smart, beautiful Maya who'd gone to Stanford while he'd gone to Virginia State, who'd gotten the MBA while he'd barely scraped through law school, who'd somehow convinced their father that she should be the one to take over the business, not him, the son, the heir. And now she'd married into the military aristocracy. Captain Jack West, Top Gun graduate, hero pilot from a family that had generations of officers. The Wests had money, but more importantly, they had connections. The kind of connections that could get defense contracts, that could open doors in Washington. Connections Ryan needed. Connections he'd been counting on once Maya was family. Except now he'd punched her in the face at her wedding. Stupid, he muttered to himself. So damn stupid. But she'd been so smug, talking about how she and Jack would be moving to San Diego after the wedding. How she'd be running Anderson Properties remotely. How she'd hired a new COO to handle the day-to-day in Virginia Beach. You're taking the company to California, he demanded, the bourbon making his voice too loud. Not taking it, Ryan. Running it from there. The business is global now. I can be anywhere. Dad built that business here for this community. And now I'm growing it for the next generation, she'd said, that infuriating calm in her voice. The calm that said she knew she'd won, that the business was hers, that he was just the little brother who'd never measured up. The words had spilled out then, the accusations, the resentment built up over years. She'd tried to calm him, her hand on his arm. He'd shaken it off. And then the punch. He remembered the feel of his fist connecting with her jaw, the shock in her eyes, the blood, and Jack West's voice, cold as steel. You just assaulted an officer's spouse. Face the wall. Now. Ryan laid back on the bunk, staring at the ceiling. 8 years. He was 34. He'd be 42 when he got out. His life over. Unless, he sat up, unless he could get to Maya. She was his sister. She loved him despite everything. She wouldn't let him go to prison for 8 years. She'd talk to Jack, make him drop the charges. That was it. He'd apologize, grovel if he had to. It was a moment of madness, fueled by alcohol and family tension. No reasonable person would send him to prison for that. Feeling slightly better, Ryan lay back down. He'd talk to Maya in the morning. She'd understand. She'd always been the reasonable one, the peacemaker. Everything would be fine. He almost believed it. Portsmouth Naval Medical Center, Jack West stood at the window of his wife's hospital room, watching the first light of dawn tinge the sky pink over the Chesapeake Bay. Maya slept fitfully, her jaw wired shut, her face swollen and bruised. The doctors said she'd need surgery in a few days when the swelling went down. They'd put a plate in her jaw. She'd be on a liquid diet for weeks. His wife of less than 12 hours. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, seeing the number. Colonel Briggs, his squadron commander. West, he answered quietly. Jack, heard what happened. How's your wife? Fractured jaw, in pain, sleeping now. A pause, and your brother-in-law. In the brig at Little Creek, charges being drawn up. Good. Briggs's voice was all business. The Admiral was there. Saw the whole thing. He's not happy. No, sir. The JAG office is already on it. They'll be contacting you. And your wife. She'll need to make a statement. She's in no condition today, Jack. The sooner the better, before the family gets to her. Jack closed his eyes. They're her family, sir. And they're about to launch the biggest guilt offensive you've ever seen, Briggs said bluntly. My ex-wife's family tried to get me to drop charges when her brother took a swing at me. Took 6 months and a protection order before they backed off. And that was just a civilian assault. This is different. Damn right it is. This is the UCMJ. This is showing that we protect our own. The Admiral wants this prosecuted aggressively. Clear message. Touch a Marine's family. You face the full weight of military justice. Jack watched Maya sleep. The left side of her face was a palette of purples and blues. Her perfect wedding makeup was smeared, her hair still partially up in the elaborate style her mother had insisted on. She might not want to press charges, he said quietly. Doesn't matter. The military will. She's a dependent now. This is our jurisdiction. Briggs sighed. Look, Jack, I know this is tough. Wedding day, family drama. But he broke her jaw. That's not a slap. That's not a shove. That's felony assault. If this were my daughter, I'd want the guy buried under the jail. Yes, sir. Take a few days. Be with your wife. The squadron's covered. But be ready. Jag will want to talk to you both today. Understood. Jack hung up, slipping the phone back into his pocket. He leaned against the window, the glass cool against his forehead. He'd known marrying Maya would complicate things. The Andersons were Virginia Beach royalty. Old money, new money, real estate empire money. Ryan had been a prick from day one, always making little comments about military guys and government paychecks. But Jack had hoped, that once he and Maya were married, once they were family, things would settle. Now this. His phone vibrated again. This time his mother. Jack? Honey, we just heard. Is Maya all right? Fractured jaw, Mom. She'll need surgery. A sharp intake of breath. That bastard. I always knew he had a temper. But this, it's handled. Is it? Your father says the Andersons are already calling their lawyers. Political connections. They're going to fight this. Jack's father, retired General Harrison West, had spent 30 years in the Marine Corps. He knew how the machine worked, knew where the pressure points were. The JAG's involved, Jack said. It's out of my hands. Good, let them handle it. His mother's voice was fierce. You protect your wife. That's your job now. I'm trying, Mom. I know you are, baby. Her voice softened. Bring her here to recover. We've got plenty of room. She shouldn't be alone while you're flying. I'll ask her when she wakes up. Do that. And Jack. A pause. Don't let them get to you. The Andersons. They're used to getting their way. But this time, they're messing with the wrong family. He smiled faintly. The Wests might not have the Andersons' money, but they had 3 generations of Marine Corps officers. They had connections in the Pentagon, in Congress, in the Defense Department. If the Andersons wanted to fight, they'd get one. Love you, Mom. Love you too. Take care of your girl. He hung up, turning back to the bed. Maya's eyes were open, watching him. Hey, he said softly, crossing to her side. How do you feel? She tried to speak, but with her jaw wired shut, it came out as a mumble. She made a writing motion with her hand. He found a notepad and pen in the bedside table, handing them to her. Hurts, she wrote. What time? Almost 6. You've been asleep a few hours. He sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. The doctor says you'll need surgery in a few days. They'll put a plate in. She wrote again, her handwriting shaky. Ryan? In custody. My parents? I don't know. They're probably calling every lawyer they know. She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. This is a nightmare. I know. He brushed the tear away. I'm sorry. Her eyes opened sharp. She wrote quickly. Not your fault. His. But if I hadn't, she shook her head, wincing at the pain. Wrote, he hit me. You protected me. That's your job. And arresting him? Having him charged under the UCMJ? That's my job too. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, he can't hit people, even family. She wrote, her hand steadying, especially family. There was a knock at the door. A young woman in a Navy uniform stood there, a briefcase in her hand. Captain West? Mrs. West? I'm Lieutenant Collins, Jag. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to take your statements. Jack looked at Maya. She nodded, squeezing his hand. Come in, Jack said, standing. But my wife can't speak. Her jaw is wired. Writing is fine, Lieutenant Collins said, coming in. She was young, maybe late 20s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Or she can type on a tablet, whatever's comfortable. She pulled up a chair, opening her briefcase. First, Mrs. West, I'm very sorry about what happened. I know this is difficult. Maya wrote, Thank you. I need to get your account of the events in as much detail as you can manage. Then Captain West's. Then I'll explain the process going forward. Jack watched as Maya began to write, her hand moving slowly across the page. The story of her wedding day, the celebration, her brother drinking too much, the argument, the punch, his own fists clenched at his sides. He remembered it in slow motion. Ryan's face twisted with anger. Maya stumbling back, blood on her white dress, the shock on the guests' faces, the 200 witnesses, and his own voice cold and clear. You just assaulted an officer's spouse. Face the wall. Now. He hadn't even thought about it. It was instinct training. Protect what's yours. And Maya was his wife, his family. Ryan had crossed a line, and in Jack's world, lines mattered. Rules mattered. The chain of command, the code, the uniform he wore. Maybe in the civilian world, you could punch your sister at her wedding and get away with a slap on the wrist. Maybe you could call it a family matter, sweep it under the rug, pretend it never happened. Not in his world. In his world, actions had consequences, clear, defined, unforgiving consequences. Lieutenant Collins was speaking, explaining the charges. Assault consummated by battery upon a military dependent, possibly aggravated assault, given the severity of the injury. The Article 32 hearing, the possibility of a court-martial. Maya listened, her eyes wide. She wrote a question. Prison? If convicted, yes, Collins said gently. The maximum for aggravated assault is 8 years. Given the circumstances, the very public nature, the number of witnesses who are active duty or retired military, the convening authority will likely push for a severe sentence. Another tear trailed down Maya's cheek. Jack reached for her hand, but she pulled away, writing again. I don't want him to go to prison for 8 years. That's not your decision, Mrs. West, Collins said. The military will prosecute regardless of your wishes. Your testimony will be important, but the decision to charge and how to charge rests with the JAG office and the convening authority. But if I say I don't want to press charges, doesn't matter. You're a dependent now. This is a military matter. Collins's voice was kind but firm. I know that's hard to hear, but the military takes attacks on dependents very seriously. It's about morale, about showing that we protect our families. If we let this slide, what message does that send? It was a family fight, Maya wrote. He was drunk. Doesn't matter, Collins repeated. He broke your jaw, Mrs. West. That's not a slap. That's not a push. That's felony assault. If this were a bar fight, he'd be looking at jail time. The fact that it's a wedding, that he's your brother, that might matter to a civilian judge. It won't matter to a military court. Maya put the pen down, closing her eyes. She looked exhausted, in pain, overwhelmed. We can do this later, Collins said, gathering her things. You've been through a trauma. Get some rest. But know this, the process has already started. Your brother will have a hearing in the next 72 hours. You'll be subpoenaed to testify. So will Captain West, and about 200 wedding guests. She stood, handing Jack her card. Call me if you have questions. And Captain, the Admiral sends his regards. He's not pleased about this. I gathered, Jack said dryly. He's making it a priority. Wants it handled quickly, cleanly. Maximum deterrence value. She glanced at Maya, who had her eyes closed, pretending to sleep. I'm sorry. I know this is difficult for your family. He's not my family, Jack said, the words out before he could stop them. Lieutenant Collins nodded. Right. Well, I'll be in touch. She left, the door clicking shut behind her. In the sudden quiet, Jack looked at his wife. Her breathing was even, but he could tell she wasn't asleep. Maya, he said softly. She opened her eyes. They were full of pain, but not just physical. I'm sorry, he said, for all of it. She picked up the pen, wrote one word. Why? Why what? Why did you marry me? The question caught him off guard. What? Because I love you. You love me, but you don't know my family. Not really. I know enough. No, you don't. She wrote slowly, as if each word cost her. Ryan has always been angry, jealous. The business, it should have been his. Dad gave it to me. He's never gotten over it. That's no excuse for what he did. I know, but she hesitated, then wrote, He's my brother. I love him. Even now. Jack took a breath, letting it out slowly. I know you do, but love doesn't mean you let people hurt you. What happens now? She wrote. Now we get through today, then tomorrow, then the next day. He took her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Together. That's what we promised, for better or worse. She managed a small smile, though it clearly hurt. Wrote, This is worse. It'll get better, he promised, though he wasn't sure he believed it. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. He opened it. Captain West. This is Robert Anderson. We need to talk. Today. Without Maya. Jack stared at the message. Maya's father. Of course. The first move in the guilt-offensive Colonel Briggs had predicted. Who is it? Maya wrote, seeing his expression. No one, he said, deleting the message. Just the squadron. Go back to sleep. She looked like she didn't believe him, but she closed her eyes anyway. Jack sat watching her, his mind racing. The Andersons would come at him with everything they had. Money, lawyers, political pressure. They'd try to get to Maya, to get her to recant. They'd try to get to his command, to get the charges dropped. They'd paint him as the villain, the new husband who turned a family disagreement into a federal case. And maybe they'd be right. Maybe he'd overreacted. Maybe he should have just punched Ryan back. A good old-fashioned fistfight between brothers-in-law. Maybe that's what normal families did. But he wasn't from a normal family. He was from a Marine family. And in his family, you didn't solve problems with your fists. You followed the rules. You upheld the code. You protected what was yours. And Maya was his. His phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from a number he recognized. Paul Mercer, Ryan's lawyer. Captain West. Paul Mercer here, representing Ryan Anderson. I'd like to discuss a resolution that doesn't involve a court-martial. Perhaps we can meet today. Jack didn't reply. He looked at Maya, sleeping fitfully, her face bruised, her jaw wired shut. No, he thought. No resolution. Not this time. Ryan Anderson had made his choice. Now, he'd live with the consequences. And Jack would make sure of it. The first time I saw my face after the surgery, I cried. Not the quiet, pretty crying of wedding scenes in movies, but ugly, gasping sobs that hurt my wired-shut jaw and made the fresh incision along my jawline throb. The left side of my face was a swollen, purple and yellow mess. A line of neat black stitches ran from just below my ear to the point of my chin, where the surgeons had inserted a titanium plate to hold the broken bones together. The swelling will go down in a few days, the nurse said gently, her hand on my shoulder, and the bruising will fade. You'll be back to normal in no time. But I knew that wasn't true. Nothing would ever be normal again. It was my third day in Portsmouth Naval Medical Center. Jack had barely left my side, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair by the window, fielding calls from his command, from the JAG office, from my parents, calls he never let me take. You need to rest, he'd say whenever my phone buzzed with a call from my mother, my father, my aunts. They're just going to pressure you. They're my family, I'd try to say, but with my jaw wired shut, it came out as a muffled groan. I'd taken to texting instead, tapping out messages on my phone with trembling fingers. Mom, please, Maya. He's your brother. He made a mistake. Me, he broke my jaw. Mom, he was drunk. He's sorry. He's devastated. Me, I'm in the hospital. Mom, and whose fault is that? If you hadn't flaunted the California move in front of him, I'd stopped responding after that. Now, on the morning of the fourth day, Lieutenant Collins was back. This time she wasn't alone. An older man in a Navy captain's uniform stood with her, his expression grim. Mrs. West, Collins said, this is Captain Henderson, the lead prosecutor for the Norfolk Naval Base JAG office. He'd like to speak with you about the case. Jack stood up from his chair, his posture going rigid. She's in no condition for an interrogation. It's not an interrogation, Captain, Henderson said. His voice was deep, authoritative. He had the look of a man who'd spent 30 years in the Navy and wasn't used to being questioned. It's a victim interview, and given the timeline we're working with, it needs to happen today. What timeline? I typed on my phone, letting the automated voice speak for me. The text-to-speech app was becoming my new voice, flat and robotic. Henderson glanced at the phone, then at me. Your brother's Article 32 hearing is scheduled for Friday. That's 3 days from now. I need your formal statement, and I need to prep you for testimony. She's testifying at the hearing? Jack asked sharply. She's the victim, Henderson said, as if that explained everything, and the only eyewitness who's not a fellow service member or dependent. Her testimony is crucial. I typed again. What happens at the hearing? It's like a civilian preliminary hearing, Collins explained. The investigating officer will hear evidence and decide if there's enough to proceed to a court-martial. Given the evidence, she glanced at Henderson, who gave a slight nod. Given the evidence, it's almost certain he'll recommend a general court-martial. A full trial, I typed. Yes, Henderson said. The charges are serious. Assault consummated by battery upon a military dependent with aggravated circumstances. Maximum sentence is 8 years confinement, dismissal, and forfeiture of all pay and allowances. The words were so formal, so cold. 8 years. My brother was 34. He'd be 42 when he got out. His life over. Mrs. West, Henderson continued, pulling a chair up to my bedside. I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with your brother, about the events of the wedding, and about anything that might have led up to the assault. Jack started to protest, but I held up a hand. I typed, it's okay. I'll talk. Henderson nodded, pulling out a recorder. Do you consent to this interview being recorded? I nodded. For the record, please state your name and your relationship to the accused. I typed, the phone's robotic voice filling the room. Maya Elaine West. Nay Anderson. Ryan Anderson is my brother. And on the night of September 12th, at approximately 9:47 p.m., did your brother, Ryan Thomas Anderson, strike you in the face with his closed fist? Yes. Can you describe what led up to the assault? I closed my eyes, the memory playing behind my eyelids like a bad movie. The reception, the dancing, the champagne, Ryan drinking too much as usual, the way he'd cornered me near the bar, his breath smelling of bourbon. We were talking about the business, I typed. Anderson Properties. I told him I'd be running it from California after the move. He got angry. What exactly did he say? I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. The things Ryan had said, they weren't just the drunk ramblings of a jealous brother. They were darker, uglier. He said I stole the company from him. That Dad always loved me more. That I was marrying Jack for his family's connections. Henderson's eyes sharpened. Connections? What connections? I glanced at Jack. His face was impassive, but I saw the muscle in his jaw tighten. The Wests have military connections, I typed. Jack's father is a retired general. His uncle is a senator. And your brother thought you were marrying Captain West for those connections. He said. I paused, remembering the slur in Ryan's voice, the way he'd leaned in close. He said I was trading up, that the Anderson money wasn't good enough for me anymore, so I was getting military political connections instead. Did he threaten you before he struck you? Not exactly, he said. I took a shaky breath. He said I'd regret taking what was his. Then he hit me. Henderson made a note. And after he struck you, what did Captain West do? He caught me, told Ryan to face the wall. Then the MPs arrested him. And your relationship with your brother prior to this incident? Was it contentious? I thought about it, about the years of competition, of resentment, about the way Ryan had looked at me when our father announced I'd be taking over the company, about the Thanksgiving where he'd accidentally spilled red wine on my white dress, about the way he'd always made little comments about my weight, my hair, my boyfriends. We had a typical sibling relationship. I typed finally, even though it was a lie. Henderson clearly knew it was a lie too. Mrs. West, I have here a police report from 2012. Your brother was arrested for assault against a girlfriend. The charges were dropped when the victim refused to testify. I stared at him. What? The word came out as a mangled sound through my wired jaw. Jack was suddenly at my side, his hand on my shoulder. What the hell is this? He demanded. Why are you bringing up ancient history? It's not ancient history if it shows a pattern of behavior, Henderson said calmly. The victim in that case was a Sarah Jenkins. She told police your brother punched her in the face during an argument. Sound familiar? I felt sick. Sarah. Ryan had dated her in law school. She'd broken up with him suddenly, and he'd been devastated. He'd said she'd moved away. He'd never mentioned. Did my parents know? I typed. According to the report, your father posted bail. Your family's lawyer represented him. The case was dismissed when Ms. Jenkins recanted her statement and moved to California. Henderson looked at me, his eyes knowing. Your family has a pattern of making problems go away, Mrs. West. But this time, it's not going to work. Because it's military jurisdiction, Jack said, his voice tight. Because this time there are 200 witnesses. Half of them active duty military, Henderson corrected. Because this time the victim is married to a Marine Corps officer. And because this time the admiral who witnessed the assault wants to make an example of your brother. I typed, my hands trembling. An example? The military is under scrutiny for how it handles assault cases, Collins explained gently. Particularly assault against dependents. Your case is high profile. A wealthy civilian attacks his sister, a new military spouse at her wedding, in front of senior officers. It's a perfect storm. So Ryan's going to prison to make a point. Jack asked, his voice harsh. Ryan's going to prison because he committed a felony, Henderson said. The fact that it serves a larger purpose is incidental. He stood, gathering his notes. The Article 32 hearing is Friday at 0900 at the Norfolk Naval Base. You'll be subpoenaed to testify. I'd recommend being there early. He handed me a card. If you have any questions or if anyone tries to pressure you to change your story, call me immediately. That includes your family. After they left, the room was silent. I looked at Jack, at the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his mouth. You knew, I typed. About Sarah. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I had him investigated before I proposed. Standard procedure for someone with my security clearance. And you didn't tell me? It was sealed, dismissed. I didn't think it was relevant. He sat on the edge of my bed. Maya, I'm sorry. I should have told you. I thought about Ryan, about the times I'd seen him lose his temper, the way he'd punch walls, throw things. Once, when we were teenagers, he'd gotten into a fight with a kid at school who'd insulted me. He'd broken the kid's nose. Dad had paid for the settlement, made it go away. Had there been other incidents? Other women? Other fights that were hushed up with Anderson money and influence? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Maya, it's Paul Mercer, Ryan's lawyer. We need to talk. Your parents are worried sick. Call me. I showed the phone to Jack. His expression darkened. Don't, he said. Not without a lawyer present. I don't have a lawyer. You're a victim in a military prosecution. The JAG is your lawyer. They're prosecuting Ryan. They're not my lawyers. Same thing in this case. He took the phone from me. Let me handle this. But before he could reply, another text came through, this time from my mother. Maya, please, we're at the hospital. They won't let us up. Please tell them to let us see you. I looked at Jack. They're here? They've been here every day, he admitted. I told security not to let them up. You needed rest, not that. Let them up. Maya, they're my parents. Let them up. He studied my face for a long moment, then sighed. Okay, but I'm staying. And if it gets too much, I'm having them removed. I nodded and he texted security. 10 minutes later, my parents entered the room. My mother took one look at my face and burst into tears. My father stood stiffly by the door, his eyes on Jack. Oh, baby! My mother sobbed, rushing to my bedside. She tried to hug me, but I flinched away. The movement sent a sharp pain through my jaw. Careful, Helen, my father said, his voice tight. She's hurt. Hurt. My mother rounded on Jack, her tears turning to anger in an instant. She's not hurt, she's maimed. And it's your fault. My fault. Jack's voice was dangerously calm. You provoked him. You and your military posturing. If you hadn't flaunted your uniform, your connections, Helen, enough, my father said, but there was no force behind it. No, it's not enough. She turned back to me. Maya, baby, you have to talk to the prosecutors. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you don't want to press charges. I picked up my phone, typing slowly. I'm not pressing charges. The military is. But you can tell them you don't want to cooperate. You can refuse to testify. I'm under subpoena. I have to testify. Then lie. My mother's voice was desperate. Say you fell. Say it was an accident. I stared at her. You want me to commit perjury? To save your brother? Yes. She grabbed my hand. Maya, he's facing 8 years in prison. 8 years. His life will be over. I pulled my hand away, typing. He broke my jaw, Mom. He was drunk. He didn't mean it. He meant it. The words felt cold, even through the robotic text-to-speech. He's hit women before. Sarah Jenkins. The room went silent. My mother's face went pale. My father looked away. Where did you hear that? He asked quietly. Does it matter? I typed. You knew. You paid to make it go away. It was a misunderstanding, my mother whispered. Sarah was unstable. She made it up. I thought about the police report Henderson had mentioned, about Sarah recanting, about her moving to California. How much had my parents paid her? How much pressure had they put on her? Like, this is a misunderstanding. I gestured to my face. This is different, my father said, finally stepping forward. This is family. Families fight, Maya. They say things they don't mean. They do things they regret, but they don't destroy each other over it. I looked at him, at the man I'd idolized my whole life, the man who'd built an empire from nothing, the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, to drive a car, to read a balance sheet, the man who'd given me the company instead of his son. You gave me the business, I typed. Not him. That's what this is about. My father's jaw tightened. The business has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with it. I typed, my fingers flying over the screen. He's always resented me. And instead of dealing with it, you paid to make his problems go away. Well, you can't make this go away. Not this time. Maya, please, my mother begged. He's your brother. He loves you. He has a funny way of showing it. My father turned to Jack. Talk to her. You're her husband. Make her see sense. Jack's expression didn't change. My wife is seeing things perfectly clearly, sir. Your son assaulted her. He's going to face the consequences. Consequences. My father's voice rose. You mean you're going to use my son as a political pawn to advance your career? Don't think I don't see what's happening here. The great Captain West, making an example of the civilian who dared touch his property. I'd never seen Jack move so fast. One moment, he was standing by the window. The next, he was inches from my father, his voice low and deadly. She is not property. She is my wife. And your son broke her jaw. If you can't see the difference between that and a family squabble, then you're as blind as he is. My father, who'd never backed down from anyone in his life, took a step back. I'll ruin you, he whispered. I have friends. In Congress. In the Pentagon. I'll have your career. Go ahead, Jack said, and there was nothing in his voice but cold certainty. Try. The door opened, and a nurse came in, her eyes wide at the tension in the room. Visiting hours are over, she said firmly. The patient needs rest. My mother leaned down, kissing my forehead. Think about what you're doing, Maya. You're choosing him over your own blood. Then they were gone, and the room was quiet again. I lay back against the pillows, exhausted. Jack came to sit by the bed, taking my hand. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I shouldn't have lost my temper." "No," I typed. "You were right. They're scared. They're lashing out. They threatened your career." He smiled, a faint, tired smile. "My career has survived worse than Robert Anderson." But I saw the tension in his shoulders, the worry in his eyes. My father wasn't bluffing. He had connections. He'd donated to senators, to congressmen. He'd played golf with generals. If he decided to destroy Jack's career, he could make it difficult. My phone buzzed again, a notification from my email. I glanced at it, then sat up straight, wincing at the pain. "What is it?" Jack asked. I showed him the phone. It was an alert from the company's accounting system. A large transfer, $5 million, from the Anderson Properties operating account to an offshore holding company. The transaction was dated the day before the wedding. Authorized by Ryan Anderson. "What the hell?" Jack murmured, taking the phone. I typed quickly, "That's not right. Ryan doesn't have authorization for transfers that large. Only me and Dad. Could it be legitimate?" "I don't know, but $5 million? And to an offshore account." I pulled up the banking portal, typing in my password with trembling fingers. The system logged me in, and I navigated to the transaction history. There were more. Over the past 6 months, a dozen transfers, all to the same offshore account, all authorized by Ryan. Total, $28 million. My stomach dropped. $28 million. That was nearly a third of the company's liquid assets. "Maya." Jack's voice was concerned. "What is it?" I showed him the total. His eyes widened. "Is he embezzling?" Jack asked, his voice low. "I don't know, but something's wrong." I tried to pull up more details on the offshore account, but the information was limited. Just a name, Globodyne Holdings Limited, and a location, the Cayman Islands. I'd heard that name before. Recently. But where? My phone buzzed again. This time, a call from David Chen, my CFO. I answered, putting it on speaker. "Maya? Thank God. Are you okay? I heard about what happened." David's voice was tense, worried. I typed, "I'll live." "What's wrong?" "It's Ryan. He's been making transfers. Large ones. I tried to call him, but he's not answering. I tried your father, but he told me to mind my own business." David paused. "Maya, there's almost 30 million missing, and the auditors are coming next week." I closed my eyes. "I know. I just saw. What do you want me to do?" "I can freeze the accounts, but I need your authorization. And with you in the hospital." "Freeze them," I typed. "Today. And send me everything you have on Globodyne Holdings." "Globodyne." David's voice went strange. "Why?" "That's where the money went. Do you know them?" A long pause. "Maya, Globodyne is a defense contractor. They're bidding on the Navy's new radar system, the one your husband's squadron is testing." The room went cold. I looked at Jack. His face had gone pale. "What did you say?" Jack's voice was sharp. "Globodyne Tech," David said. "They're based in Arlington. They're one of 3 finalists for the F-35 radar upgrade contract. The contract is worth about $2 billion. He paused. "Ryan's been meeting with their VP of Business Development for months. He said it was about a real estate deal, a new campus for them in Virginia Beach. But there was no real estate deal. I'd have known about it. I approved all deals over $5 million. Freeze the accounts," I typed again. "And don't tell my father." "Maya, if Ryan's been embezzling, just do it, David. Please." I hung up, my hands trembling. Jack was already on his phone, typing rapidly. "What are you doing?" I typed. "Texting my CO," he said, his voice tight. "Globodyne is one of the contractors bidding on our radar upgrade. If Ryan's been funneling them money," he didn't finish the sentence. "He didn't need to. If Ryan was embezzling from our family company to give to a defense contractor that was bidding on a contract involving Jack's squadron, that wasn't just theft. That was something much, much worse." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Paul Mercer, Ryan's lawyer. "Maya, we need to talk. It's not just about the assault charge. There are other things. Things that could hurt a lot of people. Call me." I showed the text to Jack. His expression went grim. "Don't call him," he said. "Not yet." "What's going on, Jack?" "I don't know," he said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "But I'm going to find out." The Article 32 hearing was held in a nondescript conference room at the Norfolk Naval Base. It looked nothing like a courtroom. Just a long table, a few chairs, and a flag in the corner. But the formality was there, the weight of the military justice system. I sat at one end of the table, Jack beside me. My jaw was still wired shut, the bruises on my face now a sickly yellow-green. I wore a high-necked blouse to hide the stitches, but there was no hiding the damage. Across the table, Ryan sat with his lawyer, Paul Mercer. Ryan looked terrible, pale, unshaven, his eyes bloodshot. He wore a suit that hung loosely on him, as if he'd lost weight in the few days he'd been in custody. When his eyes met mine, they were pleading. "I'm sorry," he mouthed. I looked away. At the head of the table sat Commander Alvarez, the investigating officer. He was a serious-looking man in his 50s, with close-cropped, gray hair and glasses. He'd introduced himself, explained the process, and now he was listening as Captain Henderson laid out the case. The government will show that Ryan Anderson did, on the evening of September 12th, willfully and unlawfully strike his sister, Maya West, in the face with a closed fist, Henderson said, his voice calm and precise. The blow resulted in a fractured mandible requiring surgical intervention. Mrs. West is the spouse of Captain Jack West, United States Marine Corps, and as such is a dependent under the protection of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The assault took place in the presence of multiple military personnel, including 2 flag officers. We will be recommending charges of aggravated assault with a maximum punishment of 8 years confinement. Paul Mercer stood. "Commander, if I may, my client has no prior criminal record. He's a respected member of the community, a successful attorney. This was a family dispute that got out of hand, fueled by alcohol and emotion. To charge him under the UCMJ is an overreach of military authority. This should be handled in civilian court where it belongs. The military has jurisdiction," Henderson said, not looking up from his notes. Captain West was in uniform. The assault took place at an event attended by numerous military personnel. The victim is a military dependent. The UCMJ applies. "With all due respect, Captain," Mercer said, his voice taking on a harder edge, "the military is using my client as a political pawn. This isn't about justice. It's about sending a message." Commander Alvarez held up a hand. "Mr. Mercer, save the speeches for the court-martial. Today, we're just here to determine if there's enough evidence to proceed. Captain Henderson, call your first witness." The first witness was one of the MPs who'd arrested Ryan. He described the scene, the arrest, Ryan's blood alcohol level, 0.12, over the legal limit. Then came the doctor who'd treated me, with my medical records and x-rays showing the broken jaw. Then it was my turn. I took the stand, such as it was, just a chair at the end of the table. Henderson asked me to describe what happened, and I typed my answers on my phone, the robotic voice filling the room. Yes, that was my brother. Yes, he hit me. Yes, he'd been drinking. Yes, we'd been arguing about the family business. Mercer stood for cross-examination. "Mrs. West, you and your brother have had a contentious relationship for years. Isn't that true?" I typed. "We've had disagreements. More than disagreements, wouldn't you say? You took over the family business that he believed was rightfully his. That created tension, didn't it? My father made that decision, but it created resentment, didn't it? And on the night of the wedding, you were flaunting your new life, weren't you? Talking about moving to California, running the business from there." I hesitated. I was sharing my plans. Plans that excluded your brother. Plans that rubbed his nose in the fact that you'd won, and he'd lost. "Objection," Henderson said. "Calls for speculation." "Sustained," Alvarez said. "Mr. Mercer, stick to the facts." "The fact is, Mrs. West, that this was a family argument that got out of hand. Your brother had too much to drink, lost his temper, and did something he deeply regrets. Isn't that true?" I looked at Ryan. He was staring at the table, his shoulders hunched. He looked broken. "He broke my jaw," I typed. "And you want to see him go to prison for 8 years for that? Your own brother." Henderson stood. Objection. The victim's desires are not relevant to the charges. They're relevant to motivation, Mercer shot back. If the victim doesn't want prosecution, I didn't say that. I typed and the room went quiet. I'm sorry, Mercer said. I typed again, my fingers hitting the keys harder. I didn't say I don't want prosecution. He broke my jaw. He's hit women before. He needs to be held accountable. Ryan's head snapped up. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw not pleading but anger, betrayal. Mercer recovered quickly. Mrs. West, with all due respect, that's not your decision to make. This is a military prosecution. You're just a witness. A material witness, Henderson corrected, and the victim. Her opinion matters to the convening authority, even if it's not legally binding. The hearing went on for another hour. Henderson called 2 more witnesses, guests at the wedding who were retired military, who testified to seeing the assault. Then it was over. I'll have my recommendation to the convening authority by tomorrow, Commander Alvarez said, gathering his papers. You'll be notified of the decision. As we stood to leave, Ryan's voice stopped me. Maya, please. I turned. He was being led out by the MPs, but he'd stopped looking back at me. I'm sorry, he said, and this time the tears in his eyes were real. I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe me. I just looked at him, my face expressionless. It's not what it looks like, he said, his voice dropping. The money, the other things. I can explain. Just give me a chance to explain. Time to go, Mr. Anderson, one of the MPs said, taking his arm. Ryan let himself be led away, his eyes on me until the door closed behind him. Jack took my arm. Come on, let's get you home. Home was Jack's apartment near the base, a temporary place until we moved to California. It was sparsely furnished, all clean lines and military neatness. I sank onto the couch, exhaustion washing over me. You did good, Jack said, sitting beside me. You told the truth. It doesn't feel good, I typed. It never does. He put an arm around me, careful of my injuries, but it was the right thing. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. How could you? He's your brother. I didn't respond. Another text came through, this time from my father. The board is meeting tomorrow. They're voting to remove you as CEO. Call me. I showed it to Jack. His expression darkened. They can't do that. They can. I'm incapacitated, and with embezzlement, we don't know it's embezzlement yet. It could be legitimate. $28 million to an offshore account without board approval. I shook my head. It's embezzlement, and my father knows about it. What makes you say that? He told David to mind his own business. He's protecting Ryan. He's always protected Ryan. Jack's phone rang. He glanced at it, then stood. I have to take this. It's Colonel Briggs. He went into the bedroom, closing the door. I could hear the low murmur of his voice, but not the words. When he came out 10 minutes later, his face was grim. What is it? I typed. There's been a development, he said, sitting beside me. The NCIS is getting involved. NCIS, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. I had seen the show, but I'd never had any dealings with them. Why? I typed because of Globodyne. Jack ran a hand through his hair. Because Ryan's been moving money to a defense contractor that's bidding on a contract with my squadron. And because I'm the commanding officer of the squadron testing their system. I stared at him. What are you saying? I'm saying the NCIS is opening an investigation into Ryan, into the money, and into whether there's any connection to me or my squadron. But that's ridiculous. You didn't even know about the money until yesterday. I know that. You know that. But the NCIS doesn't. He took a deep breath. They're putting me on administrative leave, pending the investigation. I felt the world drop out from under me. What? Standard procedure. Anytime there's even the appearance of impropriety, they ground you until it's cleared up. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Don't worry. It's just temporary, until they figure out what's going on. But I could see the worry in his eyes, the fear. A Marine pilot grounded during an investigation. It didn't matter if he was innocent. The stain would remain. My phone buzzed again. This time an unknown number. I answered, putting it on speaker. Mrs. West? This is Special Agent Sims, NCIS. I'd like to come by and ask you a few questions about your brother's financial activities. Would now be a good time? I looked at Jack. He nodded, his jaw tight. Yes. I typed, letting the robot voice answer for me. Now is fine. Good. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She arrived in 18. Special Agent Sims was a woman in her 40s, with short brown hair and sharp eyes. She wore a dark suit and carried a briefcase. She didn't look like the actress on the TV show. Mrs. West. Captain. She nodded to each of us. I'm sorry to bother you, especially given your injuries, but time is of the essence. What's this about, Agent? Jack asked, his voice formal. It's about your brother, Mrs. West, and about $28 million that's gone missing from your family's company. She opened her briefcase, pulling out a file, and about why that money ended up in the account of a defense contractor that's bidding on a contract with your husband's squadron. I typed, I don't know why. I just found out about the transfers yesterday. But you're the CEO of Anderson Properties, correct? How does your brother have authorization to move that kind of money without your knowledge? He shouldn't. Only my father and I have that authority. But the transfers were made under his login, with his digital signature. She slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a bank record showing the transfers. Do you recognize this account? I looked at it. The offshore account. Globidine Holdings Limited. No. I've never seen it before. What about this one? She slid another paper. This one showed a series of smaller transfers, adding up to about $500,000. They were to a different account with a different name, but I recognized the name. That's Ryan's personal account, I typed. Exactly. And look at the dates. Every time a large transfer went to Globidine, a smaller transfer went to your brother's account. Almost like a commission. I felt sick. You think he was embezzling? Taking kickbacks? That's one possibility. She pulled out another document. The other possibility is that he was funneling money to Globidine for other reasons. Maybe to influence the contract bidding. Maybe to gain insider information. Maybe to bribe someone in the Navy to steer the contract their way. Jack stiffened. Are you accusing me of something, Agent? I'm not accusing anyone of anything, Captain. I'm gathering facts. She looked at me. Mrs. West, did your brother ever ask you about your husband's work? About the radar upgrade? About the bidding process? I thought about it. Ryan had asked about Jack's work, but in a general way. What's it like to fly a fighter jet? That kind of thing. But then I remembered something. A few months ago, at a family dinner, Ryan had been particularly interested in Jack's upcoming deployment. When do you leave? How long will you be gone? What kind of exercises will you be doing? At the time, I'd thought he was just making conversation. Now I wasn't so sure. He asked about Jack's schedule, I typed. About when he'd be away. And did you tell him? Yes, he's my brother. Did you ever give him any documents? Anything about the radar system? The bidding process? No, of course not. What about your husband? Did he ever discuss classified information with you? No, Jack said sharply. I don't discuss classified information with anyone without clearance, not even my wife. But you might have mentioned things, in passing, things that seemed innocuous, but that could be valuable to someone who knows how to put the pieces together. Jack's face was stone. I'm aware of operational security, Agent. I'm sure you are. She closed her file, but your brother-in-law has been meeting with executives from Globidine for months. We have records of dinners, golf outings, even a trip to the Bahamas. And now, $28 million of your family's money has ended up in their offshore account. That doesn't look good, Captain. What are you saying? I typed, my hands trembling. I'm saying that the NCIS is opening a full investigation into your brother, into the money, and into any possible connection to your husband's squadron. She stood. You'll both be interviewed formally. And Captain, you'll need to turn over any financial records, emails, texts related to your brother or Globidine. I have nothing to hide, Jack said, but his voice was tight. I'm sure you don't. She handed him a card. My contact information. I'll be in touch. After she left, the apartment was silent. Jack went to the window, staring out at the night. This is bad, I typed. It's not good, he admitted, but it's just an investigation. They'll figure out I had nothing to do with it. But Ryan is in a lot of trouble. He turned to face me. Embezzlement, bribery, possibly espionage if he was passing information. The assault charge is the least of his worries now. I thought about my brother, sitting in a cell, about the money, about the transfers, about the way he'd looked at me during the hearing. It's not what it looks like. What if it wasn't? What if there was another explanation? My phone buzzed. Another text from Paul Mercer. Maya, please. It's urgent. Ryan needs to talk to you. He says he can explain everything, but you need to come see him. Alone. I showed it to Jack. He shook his head. Don't. Not without a lawyer. Not without NCIS present. What if he's innocent? Innocent of what? Embezzling $28 million? Hitting you hard enough to break your jaw. Jack's voice was harsh. Maya, open your eyes. Your brother is in trouble. Deep trouble. And he's trying to drag you down with him. He's my brother, and I'm your husband. Jack knelt in front of me, taking my hands. I'm on your side, always. But you need to choose, him or me. Because you can't have both. Not anymore. I looked at him, at the man I'd married, the man who'd stood by me, who'd protected me, who'd had my brother arrested for hurting me, the man who was now under investigation because of my family. I choose you, I typed. Always. He pulled me into a gentle hug, careful of my injuries. Then we get through this, together. But as I held him, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were just at the beginning, that the assault, the arrest, the hearing, that was just the opening act. The real drama was just beginning, and my brother was at the center of it. 3 days later, the commander's decision came down. Ryan would face a general court-martial for aggravated assault. The trial was set for 2 months from now. The same day, the board of Anderson Properties voted to remove me as CEO. The official reason was medical incapacitation, but everyone knew the real reason: the scandal, the assault, the embezzlement investigation. The board wanted distance from the Anderson family drama. My father was named interim CEO. He called me that evening, his voice cold. The board's decision was unanimous, he said. Given your situation, it's for the best. I was sitting in Jack's apartment, staring out at the night. My situation, I typed, knowing he couldn't see it, not caring. Your injuries, the trial, the investigation. He paused. Maya, we need to talk about Ryan. The NCIS is asking questions. About the money. About Globidine. What about Globidine? I don't know what Ryan was thinking, but he's your brother. We need to protect him. I felt a hot surge of anger. Protect him? From what? From stealing $28 million? From possibly selling military secrets? He didn't sell secrets, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. It's a misunderstanding. The money was for an investment, a real estate deal that fell through. Then why is it in an offshore account? Why is it with a defense contractor? Silence. Then, Maya, I'm your father. I'm asking you, as your father, to help your brother. Talk to the NCIS. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding, that Ryan had your permission to move the money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want me to lie to federal investigators? To cover up embezzlement? I want you to save your family. The anger in his voice was sudden, sharp. This isn't just about Ryan anymore. The NCIS is looking at the company, at me, at you. If this goes public, Anderson Properties is finished. Everything I built, everything I worked for, gone. And whose fault is that? I typed, my fingers flying. You gave Ryan access he shouldn't have had. You looked the other way when he had problems. You paid off Sarah Jenkins. You enabled him. And now it's blowing up in all our faces. Don't you dare, he hissed. Don't you dare judge me. I did what I had to do to protect this family. And you will too. Or so help me God. Maya, you will regret it. The line went dead. I sat there, shaking. My own father had just threatened me to protect my brother, to protect the company. The company, always the company. My phone buzzed. A text from David Chin. They fired me. Your father just called. Said I was disloyal for freezing the accounts. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm sorry too, I typed back. Thank you for trying. Be careful, he replied. There's something wrong with the books. More than just Ryan's transfers. I found other discrepancies. Older ones. Going back years. My blood went cold. What kind of discrepancies? I'll email you what I found. But watch your back. Your father isn't who you think he is. The email came through a minute later. Attached were spreadsheets, bank records, transaction histories. I opened them, scrolling through. David was right. There were transfers going back 5 years. Large sums moving through shell companies, ending up in offshore accounts. All authorized by my father. Not embezzlement. Something else. Something more systematic. I was still staring at the screen when Jack came home. He looked exhausted. His uniform rumpled, his eyes shadowed. Bad day? I typed the worst. He sank onto the couch beside me. The NCIS interviewed everyone in the squadron. They're going through all our records, our emails, our phone logs, looking for any connection to Globidine, to Ryan. I'm sorry, not your fault. He leaned his head back, closing his eyes, but it's a mess. Morale is in the toilet. Everyone's looking at everyone else, wondering who's dirty. And I'm stuck on the ground while my squadron flies without me. I showed him my phone, the email from David. He scanned it, his expression growing grimmer. This is money laundering, he said softly. Not embezzlement, money laundering. What? Look. He pointed to the screen. These transactions, they're structured to avoid reporting requirements. Moving money through shell companies, offshore accounts. This isn't your brother stealing from the company. This is the company being used to clean money. But why? We're a real estate company. Real estate is perfect for money laundering. You buy properties with dirty money, sell them, and suddenly the money's clean. He looked at me. Maya, how much do you really know about your family's business? I thought about it. I had taken over as CEO 2 years ago, after my father's heart attack, but he'd stayed on as chairman. He'd still been involved, still signing off on major deals. Ryan had been head of development, handling new projects. I'd focused on operations, on the day-to-day. I had trusted them. They were my family. Not enough, I typed. Apparently, I don't know enough. Jack's phone rang. He glanced at it, then answered. West. A pause. When? How? Another pause, longer. I'll be right there. He hung up, his face pale. What is it? I typed. Ryan's been released. I stared at him. What? How? Bail. His lawyer got him released on bail. $1 million. Jack stood, grabbing his keys. I have to go to the base. The NCIS wants to talk to me. Now. It's 9 p.m. They found something. In Ryan's phone records. Calls to a number in Russia. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. Maya, this isn't just about money anymore. This is about espionage. He was out the door before I could respond. I sat in the sudden silence. The only sound the hum of the refrigerator. My brother out on bail. My husband called in to answer questions about espionage. My family's company, possibly a front for money laundering. My face still swollen and bruised. And then my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. I'm outside. We need to talk. Alone. I went to the window. Down in the parking lot. Ryan stood next to a black sedan. He looked up, saw me, and waved. My first instinct was to call Jack, to call the police, to lock the door and hide. But I didn't. Instead, I typed, come up. A minute later, there was a knock. I opened the door. Ryan stood there, looking worse than he had in the hearing. Pale, thin, his eyes haunted. Can I come in? He asked, his voice hoarse. I stepped aside. He came in, looking around the apartment. Nice place. For a Marine. I didn't respond, just gestured to the couch. He sat, and I sat across from him, my phone in my hand. I'm sorry, he said, and this time it sounded genuine. For hitting you, for everything. I was drunk and angry and, I'm sorry. Why are you here? I typed, to explain, before it's too late. He leaned forward. Maya, the money. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? It's complicated. He ran a hand through his hair. Dad's in trouble. The company's in trouble. Has been for years. Bad investments. The 2008 crash hit us harder than anyone knew. Dad's been moving money, trying to keep us afloat. By laundering money? His head snapped up. Who told you that? It's obvious, Ryan. The shell companies, the offshore accounts. He was silent for a long moment. It's not laundering. Not exactly. It's creative accounting. To keep the creditors at bay. To keep the board from finding out. And WEDDING? What's that about? A deal, he said too quickly. A real estate deal. They wanted to build a new research facility. We were going to handle the development. The money was in advance. Then why is it in an offshore account? Why isn't it on the company books? Because, he sighed a deep, weary sound. Because it wasn't exactly legal. The zoning, the permits. Dad had to pay people off. You know how it is. I did know. My father had always operated in the gray areas. Campaign contributions to the right politicians. Gifts to the right officials. It was how business was done in Virginia Beach. But this was different. And the NCIS? The calls to Russia? He went very still. What calls to Russia? Jack, said the NCIS, found calls from your phone to a number in Russia. I don't know anything about that. But he wouldn't meet my eyes. They're fishing, Maya. Trying to make this into something it's not. Trying to connect me to Jack, to the radar contract, too. He shook his head. It's all a misunderstanding. If you just talk to them, tell them what? That it's all a misunderstanding? That you didn't mean to steal $28 million? That you didn't mean to break my jaw? I didn't mean to hurt you, he whispered. I love you. You're my sister. Then why? The word came out as a sob, mangled by my wired jaw. Why did you do it? Because I was jealous. The words burst out of him. Because you got everything. The business, Dad's approval, the perfect life. And then you married a war hero with a senator for an uncle. And I got nothing. Nothing but scraps from your table. I stared at him at the raw pain on his face. This wasn't about the money. Not really. This was about a lifetime of coming in second. Of never being good enough. I didn't take the business from you. I typed. Dad gave it to me because you were running it into the ground. Because you sabotaged me. You went to Dad behind my back. Told him I was making bad deals. You were making bad deals. You lost $10 million on the Ocean View project. It was a calculated risk. It was stupid. I typed, my fingers hitting the keys so hard I thought they'd break. And Dad knew it. That's why he gave me the company. To save it. To save our family. Our family, Ryan spat. What family? Dad only cares about the business. Mom only cares about appearances. And you only care about yourself. I stood, my whole body trembling. Get out. Maya, please. You have to help me. The assault charge I can handle. But if they pin the money stuff on me, if they start looking at the Russia thing, he stood, pleading, I could go to prison for life. Not 8 years. Life. Then you shouldn't have done it. I didn't have a choice. Dad made me. I froze. What? He realized what he'd said, and his face went pale. Nothing. I didn't mean, Dad made you do what? Nothing. Forget it. He turned to go. Ryan, tell me. He stopped, his back to me. The money, the offshore accounts, the calls. It was all Dad. I just did what he told me. The world tilted. My father. Of course. Who else had the access? The knowledge? The power? What about WEDDING, a contact? Through Dad. They needed access. To the Navy. To the radar contract. They paid for it. A lot. Access to Jack? Not specifically. Just information. When the tests were. What the requirements were. That kind of thing. He turned to face me, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. But it got out of hand. They wanted more. They threatened to go public about the money laundering if we didn't get them what they wanted. Dad panicked. He told me to handle it, but I didn't know how. I kept taking their money, hoping something would work out. And hitting me? Was that part of the plan? No, that was me. I was drunk and angry, and you were talking about California, about taking the company away, and I just snapped. He came toward me, his hands out, but it worked out in a way. With Jack focused on me on the assault, he's not looking at the money. At WEDDING, it's buying us time. I stared at him, horror dawning. You hit me to distract Jack? No, I mean not on purpose. But it worked, didn't it? He's so focused on putting me in prison for assault. He's not seeing the bigger picture. None of them are. I felt sick. My own brother, my own father, using me, using my marriage. Using my husband. Get out, I typed, my hands shaking. Now, Maya, please. You have to help me. If you don't, they'll put me away for the rest of my life. And Dad too. Is that what you want? Your own father in prison. You should have thought of that before you started selling secrets to the Russians. It wasn't like that. It was just business. It's treason. I typed the word huge on the screen. You sold out your country. You sold out my husband. I was trying to save our family. You destroyed it. The door opened. Jack stood there, still in his uniform, his face like stone. Two men in suits stood behind him, NCIS agents. Ryan Anderson, one of them, said, "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit espionage. You have the right to remain silent." Ryan looked at me, his eyes wide with betrayal. "You called them." I shook my head. I hadn't, but it didn't matter, as the agents handcuffed him, read him his rights, led him away. Jack came to me, pulling me into his arms. "I heard," he said softly. "I was outside the door. I heard everything. My father," I typed against his chest. "He's involved." "I know." He held me tighter. "The NCIS picked him up an hour ago. They're searching the company offices right now." I pulled back, looking at him. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, his voice grim, "we see how deep this goes. And we see who gets out alive." Down in the parking lot, I saw them put Ryan in the back of a car. He didn't look back. My brother, my father, my family, all of it gone. Jack's phone buzzed. He looked at it, his expression darkening. "What is it?" I typed, "The Article 32 hearing for the assault charge. It's been postponed indefinitely." "Why?" "Because," he said, looking at me with something like pity in his eyes, "the assault charge is the least of Ryan's problems now. He's looking at espionage, treason, life in prison, maybe the death penalty." The death penalty. The words hung in the air between us. My brother, my father, all because of money, because of jealousy, because of a lifetime of never being good enough. I thought about Ryan as a boy, teaching me to ride a bike, holding my hand on the first day of school, defending me from bullies. I thought about my father, lifting me onto his shoulders, teaching me to swim, showing me how to read a balance sheet. And I thought about the punch, the crack of bone, the blood on my wedding dress. "It's not what it looks like," Ryan had said, but it was exactly what it looked like. Betrayal. And I was right in the middle of it. Home from the hospital felt like stepping onto a different planet. Jack's apartment, which had once been a sterile but comfortable pit stop between his deployments and our wedding, now felt like a bunker. The blinds were permanently half-drawn. A rental car sat in the parking lot, a nondescript sedan Jack had gotten because he said my Mercedes was too noticeable. The world outside had become a thing to be viewed with suspicion. My jaw was still wired shut. I'd graduated from hospital broth to protein shakes, sipped miserably through a straw. The titanium plate under my skin itched. The bruises had faded to a yellowish map of shame across my cheekbone. Every time I caught my reflection, I saw the aftermath of my brother's fist, and behind that, the crumbling ruins of my family. Jack moved through the apartment like a caged animal. The formal notice had come down. Captain Jack West was placed on administrative leave, pending the conclusion of the NCIS investigation into potential conflicts of interest and security concerns. His security clearance was suspended, his flight status revoked. The F-35 he was meant to be flying sat in a hangar, and another pilot from his squadron had taken his slot on the upcoming carrier deployment. He didn't say much, but I saw it in the tight line of his shoulders, the way he compulsively checked his phone for updates that never came, the restless pacing that started at dawn. The military wasn't just his job, it was his identity, and it had been taken from him because of my family. A week after my discharge, Special Agent Sims returned. This time, she brought a colleague, a man introduced as Agent Willis. They sat at our small kitchen table, a digital recorder between them, and the air grew heavy with unspoken accusations. "Mrs. West, we appreciate you talking to us again," Sims began, her tone professionally neutral. "We know this is difficult." I nodded, my phone ready. "I want to help." We've been analyzing the financial data you provided from your former CFO, Willis said. He was younger than Sims, with a sharp gaze that missed nothing. The patterns are consistent with long-term money laundering. The shell companies trace back to entities in Cyprus, the Caymans, and Delaware. The ultimate beneficiaries are obscured, but we've found tenuous links to several Russian oligarchs on the sanctions list. The word Russian hung in the kitchen. Jack, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed, didn't react, but I saw the muscle in his jaw jump. My father, I typed. Robert Anderson is a person of significant interest, Sims confirmed. He was released on bail, but his passport is surrendered, and his movements are restricted. He claims no knowledge of the specifics, says your brother handled all overseas transactions. That's a lie. We suspect as much. But proving it is another matter. Sims slid a photograph across the table. It showed my father, smiling, shaking hands with a man in an expensive suit at a charity gala I recognized from last fall. Do you know this man? I peered at it. The other man was in his 60s, with silver hair and a watch that probably cost more than my car. Viktor Chernov. He's a developer. From New York, I thought. He looked at a property in Virginia Beach a few years ago, but the deal fell through. Viktor Chernov is a U.S. citizen born in Brighton Beach, Willis said. But his capital, according to our financial crimes unit, originates from a network of businesses ultimately controlled by Oleg Varnin, a Moscow-based billionaire with very close ties to the Kremlin. Varnin has investments in aerospace, mineral extraction, and, he paused, defense technology. The connection clicked, cold and horrifying. GroomExposed has received significant venture funding from a private equity firm that is, in part, funded by Varnin-linked capital, Sims said. It's convoluted, purposefully so, but the path leads from your family's company, through shell companies, to money that helped fund the very defense contractor bidding on a contract your husband's squadron is evaluating. I felt dizzy. The room seemed to tilt. I typed, my fingers clumsy. You think my father was funneling Russian money into GroomExposed? We think the Andersons' real estate business was being used, wittingly or unwittingly, to clean and move money, Sims corrected. Some of that money appears to have ended up as investment in GroomExposed. The why is what we're investigating. Was it pure profit? Was it a way to gain influence? Or was it, her eyes flicked to Jack, a way to gain access? Jack pushed off the counter. You've been through my emails, my texts, my bank records. You've interviewed everyone I've spoken to in the last 2 years. Have you found anything at all, that suggests I gave GroomExposed or my brother-in-law, or anyone else, unauthorized access or information? The investigation is ongoing, Captain, Willis said, his tone carefully bland. Ongoing, Jack repeated, the word dripping with frustration. My career is in a freezer, and you're telling me it's ongoing. Jack, I typed, but he wasn't looking at me. What about Ryan? Jack demanded. He's the one who took the money. He's the one who met with their executives. He's the one who made calls to a number in Moscow that you won't tell us a damn thing about. Why aren't you ongoing him into a confession? Your brother-in-law is facing multiple charges, Captain, Sim said, her calm a stark contrast to Jack's heat. His lawyer has him on lockdown. He's not talking, and the information from his phone, the Moscow number, was a burned phone. Untraceable. The call logs we found were deleted. We recovered them, but the content is gone. It's circumstantial. So you're stuck, Jack said, a bitter edge to his voice. And I'm the easiest target to squeeze. We're following the evidence, Sim said, standing. And right now, the evidence shows a lot of money moving in very suspicious ways between entities connected to your family, Mrs. West, and a critical defense contract connected to you, Captain. That's a problem for everyone. After they left, the silence was suffocating. Jack stood at the window, his back to me, a statue of tense frustration. I typed, the robotic voice breaking the quiet. I'm sorry. He didn't turn. It's not your fault. It is my family, my name. Finally, he looked at me, his eyes full of a complicated pain. Maya, when I married you, I married all of you, the good and the bad. I knew your family was complicated. I didn't know it was criminal, but that's not on you. What happens now? He sighed, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. Now we wait. The NCIS waits for a break. The JAG waits to see if the espionage case supersedes the assault case. My command waits to see if they have to court-martial one of their own or just quietly force me out. He came and sat beside me, taking my hand. His was warm, rough with calluses, and you need to heal. But healing felt like a betrayal. Healing meant accepting this new reality. Healing meant moving forward while my brother sat in a cell and my father was under house arrest and my husband's life's work was in jeopardy. My phone vibrated on the table. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I hadn't spoken to her since the day in the hospital. Jack saw it too. His grip on my hand tightened slightly. You don't have to, he said quietly. But I did. I picked it up, putting it on speaker. I couldn't talk, but she could listen to the robot. Maya. Her voice was thin, strained. Honey, are you there? I tapped once for yes. I need to see you. Please. Your father it's a nightmare here. The agents, the lawyers. Please, Maya. Just for coffee. Somewhere public. Just you and me. I looked at Jack. He gave a minute shake of his head, his expression warning. I typed. Why? A long sigh rattled through the speaker. Because you're my daughter, and I'm your mother, and families, they talk. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. There was a desperation in her voice I'd never heard before. Not the performative hysterics of the hospital, but something deeper, more broken. Where? I typed. The cafe on Laskin. The one you used to like. In an hour. Just you. Just me. I promise. I tapped yes again and ended the call. Jack was already shaking his head. Maya, no. It's a terrible idea. She's going to manipulate you. Pressure you. I know, I typed. But she's still my mother, and I need to hear what she has to say. Hear her lie to you? Hear her make excuses for them. His voice was low, urgent. They're drowning, and they'll pull you under with them. Don't give them the chance. I reached out, touched his cheek. I have to. For me. I need to look her in the eye and know. He searched my face, then finally nodded, reluctance in every line of his body. I'll drive you. I'll wait outside. 1 hour. If you're not out in 60 minutes, I'm coming in. The cafe was a quaint, overpriced place with farmhouse tables and the scent of roasted beans. It was half full, the quiet hum of conversation a buffer. I saw my mother before she saw me. She sat in a corner booth, her back to the wall, a single untouched latte in front of her. She looked 10 years older. Her blonde hair, usually impeccably styled, was pulled into a messy bun. She wore no makeup and her eyes were red-rimmed. She saw me and her face crumpled for a second before she wrestled it into a fragile smile. I slid into the booth opposite her, setting my phone between us. Oh, Maya, she whispered, her hand fluttering as if to touch my face but thinking better of it. Your poor face. I typed. It's healing. A tear escaped and tracked down her cheek. I'm so sorry for all of it. Why are we here, Mom? She took a shaky breath, folding her hands around her cup. To tell you the truth, the whole truth, or as much of it as I know. She looked out the window, her gaze distant. Your father, the business, it hasn't been right for a long time. Not since the recession. He saved it, but the way he saved it, it left marks. Debts. To people you don't want to owe. Russian people. She flinched. I didn't ask. I made a point of not asking. It was easier that way. The money would come in, the debts would get paid, the company would stay afloat. We kept the house, the cars, the life. She looked at me, her eyes pleading for understanding. It was for the family, Maya. Everything he did, it was to protect what we had. By laundering money, he called it creative financing. She gave a hollow laugh. I called it survival. And then Ryan wanted in. He was jealous of you, yes. But he was also desperate to prove himself to your father, to be the hero who fixed everything. So your father gave him jobs, special projects, dealing with the offshore partners. Globodyne, she nodded, looking ill. One of the partners suggested it, an investment, a way to make the money work, to get a legitimate return. Your father thought it was perfect. American defense company, patriotic even. Ryan took the lead. He was so excited. He thought he'd finally found a way to be the golden boy. I typed, the cold logic of it settling in my gut. But it wasn't an investment. It was a way in for the Russians to get access to military technology. "I don't know that," she said, too quickly, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "I don't know what they intended. Maybe it was just an investment. Maybe Ryan got in over his head, and they pressured him. And the calls to Moscow, the information about Jack's squadron?" She looked down at her hands. "I don't know anything about that. But Ryan, he's not a bad person, Maya. He's weak. He's easily led. He wanted so badly to be the man your father is, and he couldn't be, and it made him angry. At the world. At you. Especially at you. So he hit me. Fresh tears. That was the alcohol. The jealousy. A perfect, stupid storm. He's devastated. He asks about you every day." I felt a surge of white-hot anger. Don't you dare make him the victim here." "He is a victim," she hissed, leaning forward. "He's a victim of your father's expectations, of this mess your father created. And now they're going to put it all on him. Your father's lawyers are already talking about deals, about Ryan taking responsibility for the financial irregularities, to protect the family, to protect your father." The pieces snapped together with a terrible metallic finality. My father was going to sacrifice Ryan. The son he'd never been able to make into a worthy heir would now become the fall guy. "And you're going to let him? What choice do I have?" Her voice broke. "It's him or Ryan. If they go after your father, the whole company collapses. Everything is gone. Hundreds of employees. Our name. Everything. If he cooperates, takes a plea, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe with a good lawyer. He's looking at espionage charges, Mom. Life in prison. Maybe the death penalty." She went paper white. No, that's for traitors. For spies. Ryan's not that. He's just a boy who made bad choices. He's 34, and he chose to take money. He chose to meet with foreign agents. He chose to hit his sister. I typed each sentence with deliberate, brutal force. Those are his choices. She stared at me, and I saw the moment the last vestige of my mother, the protector, the nurturer, retreated, and the woman who had chosen survival at any cost emerged. "You're so like your father," she said, her voice cold and flat. "So sure of yourself, so righteous. You got the business because you're cold, because you can make the hard choices. Well, I'm making mine." "What does that mean?" "It means you need to make a choice too, Maya." Her eyes locked on mine. "You can help your brother, or you can help the man who turned him in." Jack didn't turn him in for this. He turned him in for assault. "And then he opened the door to all of this," she whispered fiercely. "His military police, his JAG lawyers, his NCIS agents. If he had just let it be a family matter, none of this would be happening. Ryan would be in rehab, not in a federal detention center. Your father wouldn't be facing ruin. Don't you see? He lit the match, Maya. He set the fire." The twisted logic of it was almost impressive. In her world, the crime wasn't the embezzlement, the espionage, the assault. The crime was getting caught, and Jack was responsible for that. "What do you want from me?" "Talk to Jack. Get him to talk to his father. General West has friends. In the Pentagon, in the Senate. He can make this go away. He can get the more serious charges dropped. Ryan pleads to the assault. Does a year or 2, gets help. The money, we pay it back. A fine. The company survives. Your father survives. Our family survives. And Jack? He's under investigation. His career is on the line." She waved a dismissive hand. "His family can fix that. A word in the right ear. He'll get a promotion and a posting somewhere nice. Everyone wins. Everyone wins, except for justice, except for the truth, except for the fact that my brother and father had likely committed treason. You're asking me to ask my husband to use his family's influence to cover up a crime. I'm asking you to save your family." Her composure finally shattered. "I'm asking you to be the daughter I raised you to be, loyal. Do you think the Wests are so clean? Do you think a general's son doesn't know how the world works? Power protects power, Maya. That's the first rule. And you have power now through him. Use it." I stood up, my legs shaky. I looked down at this woman, my mother, a stranger bargaining with her daughter in a coffee shop. No, I typed. The robotic voice was calm, final. Her face hardened into a mask of bitter resignation. Then you've made your choice. Just remember, when you're sitting in your new life in California with your war hero, that you chose him. You chose to bury your own family. Don't come crying to us when that choice comes back to haunt you. I turned and walked out, the weight of her words like stones in my chest. Outside, the sun was too bright. Jack's rental car was idling at the curb. He got out when he saw me, scanning my face. "Are you okay?" he asked, his hand on my arm. I shook my head, climbing into the passenger seat. As he pulled into traffic, I typed, the words blurring through my tears. "She asked me to get you to use your family's influence to make the espionage charges go away, to save the company, to let Ryan take a fall for assault and let my father walk." Jack was silent for a long moment. "What did you tell her?" I told her no. He reached over, his hand covering mine on the phone. "I'm sorry." "Me too," but the apology felt inadequate. Sorry for what? For my criminal family? For the impossible position we were in? For the fact that my no might have just severed the last thread holding my birth family together? When we got home, there was a package at the door. A small, flat, express mail envelope. No return address. My name typed on the label. Jack's instincts snapped into place. "Don't touch it." He nudged it with his foot, then cautiously picked it up, examining it. Postmarked Norfolk. Yesterday. He carried it inside, setting it on the kitchen table. "Wait here." He returned with a pair of latex gloves from the first aid kit and a utility knife. Carefully, he slit the envelope open. Inside was a single, sealed smaller envelope and a cheap burner phone. He used the knife tip to slide out the inner envelope. A folded piece of paper. He opened it. It was a handwritten note. "Maya, if you're reading this, I couldn't tell you in person. They're watching me. Maybe watching you too. I'm in deeper than I ever said. Dad is in deeper than he knows. It's not just money. It's not just Globidine. The man I met from Globidine, Carl Bergman, he's not just a VP. He's the liaison. To the other side. The tests your husband's squadron ran on the new radar, the data was compromised before it was even gathered. Bergman has a source inside. The system is flawed, but the tests are rigged to show it works. If the Navy buys it, it's $1 billion hole in our defense. And worse, I was the mule. I moved money. I passed messages. I thought I was being a player. I was an idiot. The phone is clean. It has one number programmed in. It's for a woman named Lisa. Lisa Crawford. You need to talk to her. She knows Bergman. She knows more about Jack than you do. Don't trust anyone, Maya. Not Dad. Not Mom. Not the lawyers. And maybe not your husband. I'm sorry. For everything. The note slipped from Jack's gloved fingers onto the table. He was staring at it, his face utterly bloodless. "Lisa Crawford," he breathed, the name sounding like a curse. I grabbed my phone. "You know her." He didn't answer for a long moment. Then he said she's my ex-fiancée. The room spun. What? From a long time ago, before I joined the Marines. It ended badly. He finally looked at me, and the guilt in his eyes was a physical blow. "She works at Globidine, in their communications department." I knew that. "And you didn't think to mention that? When an investigation started into Globidine and my brother, it didn't seem relevant. It was over a decade ago. We haven't spoken in years. But Ryan knew about her. He says she knows Bergman. He says she knows about you." "What does that mean, knows about me?" Jack's voice rose. "There's nothing to know. She's a bitter ex-girlfriend from my past who happens to work for a shady defense contractor. That's a coincidence, not a conspiracy. Is it?" I typed the doubt, seated by my mother and watered by Ryan's note, sprouting thorns in my heart. "You warned Ryan before the wedding. You told me. You said you told him to back off. Did you know about Globidine then? Did you know about Lisa?" "I told him to stay away from you. To stop causing drama." Jack shot back. I knew he was jealous, that he had a temper. I didn't know he was committing financial crimes and espionage. For Christ's sake! The burner phone on the table rang. We both jumped. A shrill, insistent trill. Jack stared at it, then at me. Slowly, I reached out and picked it up. I answered, putting it on speaker. Hello. A woman's voice, smooth, cultured, with a slight southern drawl. Maya West? This is Lisa Crawford. I believe my number was given to you. I typed, holding the phone to the speaker on my other device. Yes, by my brother. Poor Ryan, in way over his head. A sigh. Look, I don't have much time. I'm taking a risk calling. But Ryan begged me. He said you were the only one who might listen. Listen to what? To the truth. Your brother is a pawn. Your father is a useful idiot. The real game is much bigger, and your husband, the heroic Captain West, is standing right in the middle of the board. Jack made a sharp, furious movement, but I held up a hand. Explain. Not over the phone. Meet me. Today. 4 p.m. The Botanical Gardens. The Orchid Greenhouse. Come alone. If I see anyone with you, especially Jack, I'm gone, and you'll never hear from me again. Why should I trust you? A low, humorless laugh. You shouldn't trust anyone, honey, but I'm the only one offering you answers. Your choice. The line went dead. I set the burner phone down. My hands were ice cold. Jack was pacing, a storm contained in a small room. It's a trap, he said, his voice tight. Or she's crazy. Or both. You're not going. I have to. No, you don't. This is how they get to you. Through fear, through confusion. Ryan sends a cryptic note. Some woman from my past calls with mysterious warnings. It's designed to make you doubt everything. To make you doubt me. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I'd married. The man who had been my rock through the worst experience of my life. The man now under a cloud because of me. Was my mother right? Was I choosing him over my own blood? Was Ryan's warning a last, desperate act of a guilty brother, or a legitimate alarm bell? What aren't you telling me, Jack? I typed. The question hung between us, heavy and damning. He stopped pacing, his shoulders slumping in defeat. I had dinner with Carl Bergman 2 weeks before the wedding. The admission hit me like a second punch. What? He reached out, said he was an old friend of my father's, wanted to congratulate me on my marriage. We met at a steakhouse in D.C. It was awkward. He asked about the squadron, about the deployment schedule, about the new radar integration. Normal defense industry, schmooze stuff. I gave him nothing. Standard, can't discuss operational details lines. I thought it was just networking. When I found out he was the Globodyne VP Ryan was meeting with, I didn't know what to do. I should have reported the contact. But I was getting married. I had the assault case to deal with. I thought if I mentioned it, it would look worse, like I was trying to hide something. So I kept it to myself. The omission was like a crack in glass, spreading through the foundation of my trust. You lied to me. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you about one uncomfortable dinner with the man at the center of an espionage investigation involving my brother. I typed, my fingers stabbing the screen. The NCIS asked you if you had any contact with Globodyne. What did you tell them? He looked away. I told them about the industry mixers, the briefings. The dinner wasn't an official meeting. It was social. I didn't think it was relevant. You didn't think it was relevant. The robotic voice couldn't convey my fury, but the words on the screen were screaming. Your judgment is compromised, Jack. You're supposed to report all contact with foreign nationals and defense contractors. He's not a foreign national. He's an American VP, whose company is funded by Russian oligarchs. We stared at each other, breathing heavily. The gulf between us, which had been a crack moments before, was now a chasm. So that's it, he said finally, his voice hollow. You believe her? You believe Ryan? Over me? I don't know what to believe anymore. The admission drained the anger from me, leaving only a cold, vast exhaustion. My brother is a criminal. My father is a criminal. My mother wants me to help cover it up. And my husband had a secret dinner with the villain. I am not the villain here, Maya. Then prove it. I picked up the burner phone. Let me go meet her. Let me get the answers. And if it's a setup, if they try to hurt you, then you'll be waiting outside, just like today. But I have to go, Jack. I have to know. He saw the resolve in my eyes. The fight went out of him. He nodded, once a sharp, defeated motion. Fine, but I'm driving you. And I'm not waiting in the car. I'll be in the gardens. Close. And you keep that phone on in your pocket. I'll listen to every word. The Norfolk Botanical Gardens were a sprawling oasis of green, mostly empty on a weekday afternoon. The orchid greenhouse was a humid, glass-walled jewel box at the end of a winding path, filled with the thick scent of blooms and damp earth. It felt like a stage set for a clandestine meeting. I walked in alone, the burner phone in my jacket pocket, the line open. I could almost feel Jack's tense presence somewhere in the foliage outside. She was already there. Lisa Crawford stood before a cascading display of purple and white orchids, her back to me. She was exactly as I'd imagined from her voice. Tall, willowy, with a fall of auburn hair. She wore a simple but expensive-looking linen dress. When she turned, she was beautiful in a sharp, polished way, with intelligent green eyes that assessed me immediately, lingering on the fading bruises on my jaw. "Maya," she said, not smiling. "Thank you for coming." I nodded, holding up my phone. I can't speak. Jaws wired. I heard. Her gaze was unsettlingly direct. "Ryan did number on you. I'm sorry. He's always had a rage problem. Jack could tell you stories." The mention of Jack was a deliberate needle. I ignored it. "You said you had answers." "I have pieces. You have others. Ryan has a few. Your husband, I suspect, has the most, whether he admits it or not." She moved to a stone bench, gesturing for me to sit. I remained standing. "Start with Bergman. Carl Bergman, Senior Vice President for Special Projects at GroomExposed. My boss, technically, though I'm in PR. His job is to secure contracts, by any means necessary. He's very good at it. He identified the Navy's radar upgrade as a golden opportunity. He also identified a problem. GroomExposed's system is based on stolen Swedish tech, and it has a fatal flaw in its signal processing under certain electronic warfare conditions. It would fail in a real combat scenario. The tests the Navy runs would reveal that. So he rigged the tests. He found a pressure point, a contractor within the Navy's Test and Evaluation Division who had gambling debts. That contractor ensured the test parameters were favorable. The data was massaged, but that was risky. He needed insurance. He needed someone on the inside of the operational squadron to validate the cooked data, even subtly, to be an advocate. A cold dread began to pool in my stomach. Jack. Lisa's smile was thin without warmth. Jack West, rising star, squadron commander material, son of a general, nephew of a senator, the perfect advocate. Bergman tried the direct approach. The dinner. Jack, to his credit, brushed him off. Too straight arrow. So Bergman looked for another angle. "He found your brother, Ryan Anderson, deeply in debt to his father's shady associates, desperate to prove himself, eager to play in the big leagues. Bergman, through his Russian backers, funneled money through your father's laundering operation to Ryan, making it look like a successful investment. Ryan was putty. He'd do anything, including," she leaned forward, trying to get information from his new brother-in-law, "deployment schedules, pilot rotations, anything that might help Bergman understand the squadron's operations, find another pressure point." But Jack didn't give him anything. "Are you sure?" Lisa asked softly. "Did he ever complain about the radar tests? Mention a particular pilot who was having issues? A software glitch? Anything, no matter how small, that Bergman could use?" I thought back. Jack had been stressed about the upcoming operational evaluation. He'd mentioned the new system was temperamental. He'd griped about extra sim time, normal shop talk. But in the hands of someone like Bergman, that's not proof of anything. No, it's not. It's circumstantial. Like the dinner Jack didn't tell you about. Like the fact that I was engaged to Jack West 10 years ago, and Carl Bergman was the one who introduced us. The ground seemed to shift under my feet. What? I worked for Bergman at a different firm, fresh out of college. Jack was at Annapolis. Bergman thought a pretty girlfriend with Southern charm would be good for a future officer's career. He encouraged it. When Jack decided to go Marine Corps instead of a more lucrative path, and when he found out Bergman had encouraged the relationship as a long-term investment, Let's just say it didn't end well. For any of us. Jack hates Bergman, and Bergman considers Jack a wasted asset and a threat. The pieces were forming a picture, but it was grotesque and blurred. Why are you telling me this? If Bergman is your boss, you're risking everything. Her polished facade cracked for the first time, revealing genuine fear underneath. Because I'm not like him, and because I think he's gone too far. The Russian money, the data fraud, it's not business anymore. It's treason. And when this blows up, and it will, people like me get crushed. I want out. I need a deal. And you're the only one connected to all the pieces. The NCIS doesn't trust you because of your family. Your family hates you because of your husband. Your husband, she trailed off. What about my husband? She met my eyes. I think Jack knows more than he's saying. I don't think he's dirty, but I think he's terrified. He saw Bergman circling before the wedding. He saw Ryan hovering. He's a smart man. He must have suspected something. And instead of going to his security officer, he tried to handle it himself. He threatened Ryan, didn't he? Told him to back off. The memory of Ryan's words in the apartment. He threatened to expose me. Maybe I typed. That was his mistake. It made him look involved. And when Ryan snapped and hit you, it gave Bergman the opening of a lifetime. Suddenly, the focus was on a sordid family assault, and the brother of the accuser was a perfect patsy for the financial crimes. It distracted everyone from the bigger fraud. Jack played right into his hands. The logic was chilling. Was Jack a hapless victim of circumstance, or a man whose attempts to control a bad situation had backfired catastrophically? What do you want from me? I asked again. I want you to take what I've told you and what you know and go to the NCIS. Not the local guys. Go higher, to the DOD Inspector General. Give them Bergman. Give them the test fraud. In exchange, I get immunity. I'll testify. I have documents, emails, recordings. And my brother, my father? Her expression turned pitying. They're collateral damage, Maya. Your father was laundering money for the wrong people. Your brother was greedy and stupid. They'll go down. But if you help me bring down Bergman and the fraud, maybe their sentences are lighter. Maybe the espionage charges get reduced. It's the best you can hope for. It was a brutal calculus. Sacrifice my father and brother to the full weight of their crimes to catch a bigger fish and maybe save Jack's career. Or stay loyal to my blood and watch everything, including my marriage, potentially implode. I need to think. You don't have much time, she said, standing. Bergman knows Ryan is talking. He knows I'm nervous. He'll cover his tracks, and he'll throw everyone, including you and your Marine, under the bus to save himself. She handed me a small USB drive. This is a taste. Encrypted. The password is the name of the street Jack lived on in Annapolis. He'll know it. She walked away, disappearing into the greenery without a backward glance. I stood there, the USB drive burning a hole in my hand. The humid air felt suffocating. I pulled out the burner phone. Did you hear? Jack's voice came through, strained. Every word. Meet me at the east gate, now. He was leaning against the rental car, arms crossed, when I reached him. His face was a storm cloud. Give it to me, he said, holding out his hand for the USB drive. I hesitated. She said the password is the name of your street in Annapolis. His jaw clenched. King George Street. Give it to me, Maya. What's on it, Jack? I don't know, but it's from a manipulative liar who works for a criminal and who has hated me for 10 years. It's poison. It's evidence. It's bait. He took a step closer, his voice low and intense. Don't you see? This is exactly what they want. To divide us. To make you doubt me. To get you to run to the authorities with evidence provided by a hostile witness that implicates me. It's a trap. Then let's look at it together right now. We'll go home, plug it in, and see. No, we're taking it to Sims. Right now. We hand it over unopened. We tell her everything Lisa said. Let the NCIS deal with it. His plan was correct. It was the proper, by-the-book, innocent man's response. So why did it feel like a deflection? Why didn't you tell me about the dinner? Jack, the question was still there, the wound still fresh. He closed his eyes, pained. Because I was ashamed. ashamed that I'd even sat with that man, ashamed that my past with Lisa was tangled up in this. I just wanted it to be our wedding, our time. I made a mistake, a huge, stupid, career-ending mistake. I know that now. Please, Maya, trust me this one last time. Let's go to Sims. Together. I looked at his face, etched with fear and exhaustion and pleading. This was my husband, the man who had held me while I cried, who had faced down my father, who had stood by me when my face was broken. Was Lisa's story, a story from a jealous ex and a cornered criminal, enough to break that? But Ryan's note echoed, maybe not your husband. My mother's voice. He lit the match. I looked down at the USB drive. The answer, or more lies, was on it. Jack wanted to give it away unseen. Lisa had given me the key. I made my choice. I slipped the drive into my pocket and walked around to the passenger side of the car. Take me home, Jack. Maya, take me home. Please. The ride was silent, the air thick with everything unsaid. When we got back to the apartment, Jack went straight to the kitchen, pulling out his laptop. Okay, let's look at it. Get it over with. But I didn't give him the drive. I went to the small desk in the corner and powered on my own laptop. I'll do it. What? Why? Because the password is from your life, your past. I need to see it first. He looked stricken. You don't trust me to look at it. I just need to do this myself. He stared at me for a long moment, then threw his hands up. Fine, do what you have to do. He stalked out onto the small balcony, closing the glass door behind him with a sharp click, turning his back to me. My hands trembled as I inserted the USB drive. It appeared as a single encrypted volume. I typed in the password, King George. The drive unlocked. There were 3 folders, one labeled Bergman Comms, one labeled Test Data Fraud, one labeled West. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened the West folder. Inside were scanned documents, a copy of Jack's officer record, a dossier the kind a private investigator might compile, with photos of Jack at various events, notes on his career trajectory, his relationships, and then email printouts from an anonymous, encrypted account to an account labeled k.bergman@globodyne.tk. The subject lines were mundane. Holiday greetings, meeting follow-up, article of interest. I opened the most recent one, dated 3 weeks before the wedding. K. Contact established with RW as discussed. Subject remains resistant to direct engagement. RW is eager but unstable. Pressure through familial financial channels may yield better results than direct approach. RW suggests subject's upcoming nuptials may create distraction/opportunity. Will continue to monitor. The other asset, LC, reports historical personal connection remains a point of bitterness, not leverage. Recommends alternative approaches. Further guidance requested. Nightingale, the email was a ghost. It revealed little, but implied everything. Subject could be Jack. RW was almost certainly Ryan. LC. Lisa Crawford, the other asset. Nightingale, the code name from the NCIS briefing. The next email was dated 2 days after the wedding. K. Situation has escalated unexpectedly. RW engaged in physical altercation with subject's primary at social event. RW now in custody. This creates significant exposure risk. RW's knowledge is compartmentalized but substantive. Recommend immediate containment protocol for RW and disinformation campaign financial linkages. Exposure of primary's past contact with you may be necessary to muddy waters. Asset LC may be utilized for this purpose. The original objective remains. Pressure on subject, now immense, may become pliable or may break. Assess and advise. Nightingale, I felt cold. So cold. The emails painted a picture of operation. Jack, subject, was the target. Ryan was a tool. Lisa was an asset. The wedding assault wasn't part of the plan, but they saw it as an opportunity. Containment protocol for Ryan. A disinformation campaign that involved revealing Jack's dinner with Bergman to make him look guilty. It was all there, corroborating Lisa's story, but it didn't prove Jack was innocent. It just proved he was targeted. The email suggested he was resistant. But had that changed? I opened the last folder, Test Data Fraud. It was filled with technical schematics, falsified data reports, internal Globodyne memos discussing the anomaly suppression protocol. It was damning, but it was just data. My eyes went back to the first email. Pressure through familial financial channels may yield better results. What did that mean? Had they pressured Jack through me? Through my family's crimes? I heard the balcony door slide open. Jack stood there, his face grim. Well, did you find the smoking gun? The one that proves I'm a traitor. I looked at him, my vision blurring with tears. I pointed to the screen, to the Nightingale email. He came over, leaning down to read. I watched his face as his eyes scanned the text. I saw confusion, then dawning horror, then white-hot rage. My God, he whispered. This is an op. A full-blown intelligence operation. I was the target. He looked at me, his eyes wide with the shock of understanding. They were trying to turn me, or destroy me, and they used Ryan and Lisa, and your family, his voice broke, and you. They used you to get to me. The pieces finally locked into place with a terrible, resonant click. My family's corruption was the lever. I was the pressure point. Jack's love for me, his protectiveness, was the vulnerability they tried to exploit. The assault, the scandal, the investigation, it was all either pressure or cover. Jack sank into the chair beside me, his head in his hands. The dinner, Bergman was feeling me out, seeing if I was open to whatever. When I wasn't, they moved to plan B. Ryan. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. I swear to you, Maya, I had no idea. I thought Ryan was just a jealous, bitter asshole. I didn't know he was a fucking asset. What do we do? I typed, the enormity of it crushing me. We take this to Sims. All of it. Now, it proves I'm a target, not a collaborator. It proves the test fraud. It proves everything. A flicker of his old strength returned to his voice. But we have to be careful. Nightingale is still out there. Someone inside. Lisa might be playing a double game. We can't trust anyone. Except each other, I typed. He reached out, his hand covering mine on the mouse. His touch was warm, solid, real. Except each other, he agreed, his voice thick. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the dinner. I was trying to protect you from more stress. I was an idiot. I'll never keep anything from you again. I believed him. In that moment, with the evidence of the conspiracy on the screen before us, I believed him completely. The doubt that Lisa and my mother had sown withered in the face of this horrifying, clarifying truth. We copied the USB drive's contents onto 2 separate devices. Jack called Agent Sims, telling her we had critical, time-sensitive evidence. She told us to come to the NCIS field office immediately, to use the back entrance. As we drove through the gathering dusk, a new resolve hardened within me. My family had broken me, used me, and nearly destroyed the man I loved. The time for being a victim, a pawn, was over. The game was bigger than a broken jaw or a stolen inheritance. It was about my country, my husband's honor, and the truth. And I was done letting other people play it for me. The NCIS field office in Norfolk was a bland, government-issue building that smelled of stale coffee and industrial cleaner. At 8 p.m. on a weeknight, it was mostly empty except for the skeletal night crew. Special Agent Sims met us at a back entrance, her face unreadable in the fluorescent hallway light. She led us to a small, windowless conference room, the same one where this nightmare had deepened just days before. This had better be good, Captain. Mrs. West, Sims said, gesturing for us to sit. Agent Willis stood by the door, his arms crossed. You said it was critical. Jack placed the 2 copies of the USB drive on the table. It is. We were contacted by Lisa Crawford. She gave us this. It contains evidence of a conspiracy involving Carl Bergman of Globodyne Tech, the systematic fraud of the F-35 radar test data, and an intelligence operation targeting me. Codename Nightingale. Sims didn't touch the drives. She looked from Jack to me. Her expression, not the shocked revelation I'd expected, but a kind of weary caution. Lisa Crawford, former fiancé, current Globodyne employee. And you just met with her? Based on a note from your brother, who is facing espionage charges. She reached out to Maya, Jack said, his voice tight. We recorded the call. She asked to meet. Maya went with me monitoring. Crawford provided the drive. The password was personal, related to me. We viewed the contents. It's authentic. There are emails from an asset called Nightingale to Bergman, discussing me as a subject, discussing the use of Ryan Anderson, discussing the wedding assault as an opportunity. Sims finally picked up one of the drives, turning it over in her fingers. And you believe this is legitimate evidence, obtained from a person with a known personal grudge against you. Captain, provided through the sister of a suspect who has every reason to sow confusion and distrust. I typed, the robotic voice cutting through the tense air. It's not just emails. There's technical data, falsified test reports, internal Globodyne memos, which could be forgeries or stolen or part of an elaborate disinformation campaign, exactly as these Nightingale emails suggest might be employed. Sims set the drive down. Look, I appreciate you bringing this to us. It will be analyzed. But what you've done, meeting with a person of interest, accepting unvetted digital evidence, examining it on your personal computer, is at best a serious compromise of an ongoing investigation. At worst, it could be construed as evidence tampering or obstruction. Jack stiffened. We're trying to help your investigation. This proves the scope is bigger than my brother-in-law's embezzlement. This proves I'm a target, not a participant. It proves someone wants you to believe that. Willis spoke from the doorway, his tone neutral. The timing is convenient, don't you think? Your brother's lawyer is prepping a defense, likely based on painting Ryan as a pawn. Suddenly, you get evidence that does exactly that and also exonerates you, from a source with motive to harm you. It's a defense attorney's dream package. The disbelief was a cold shock. They were turning it around, making the evidence seem like a plant. A scheme. You think we made this up? I typed, my fingers trembling with anger. I think, Sims said, leaning forward, that you are both under immense stress, that your family is collapsing, that your career, Captain, is in the balance. People under that kind of pressure grab at lifelines, even lifelines thrown by the enemy. Her gaze softened just a fraction. Mrs. West, you've been through a trauma. You're looking for answers, for a way to make sense of the senseless. Someone is offering you a clean narrative. The evil defense contractor, the shadowy spy, your brave husband in the crosshairs. It's satisfying. It's movie logic. Real intelligence work is muddier. It's bank records and shell companies and stupid, greedy people like your brother making deals with other stupid, greedy people. So you're just going to ignore it? Jack's voice was dangerously low. We're going to process it through proper forensic channels. It will take time. Sims stood a clear dismissal. In the meantime, I must order you as parties to an active federal investigation, to cease all independent inquiries. Do not contact Lisa Crawford. Do not contact your brother except through his attorney. Do not discuss this with anyone. Is that clear? Crystal, Jack bit out. You're making a mistake, I typed, holding Sims's gaze. Maybe, she said, gathering the drives. But it's my mistake to make. Go home. Let us do our jobs. The ride home was silent, a thicker, more poisonous silence than before. The high of discovery of unity had been punctured by the agency's skepticism. The evidence that felt like a key to Jack and me looked like a trick to them. They're covering something up, Jack said finally, as we pulled into the apartment complex. Or they're so worried about being fooled that they'll miss the truth. Or Nightingale is closer than we think. I typed, the thought forming as I typed it. Sims reacted too calmly. She wasn't surprised. She was wary, like she'd been expecting it. Jack killed the engine, staring at the dark windshield. An inside man, in NCIS, or JAG, or the Navy. Someone who could steer the investigation. Someone who knew about the dinner with Bergman. Someone who knew the wedding assault would create chaos. He turned to me, his face shadowed. Someone who knows the code name Nightingale from my past. What do you mean? He shook his head, a sharp, frustrated motion. Nothing. An old op. It doesn't matter. He got out of the car before I could press, but it did matter. It hung in the air between us for the next 2 days. An unasked question. Jack was reinstated to limited duty, desk work, no flying, no access to classified material relating to the radar project. The NCIS investigation, he reported, seemed to have shifted focus. The espionage angle was getting less airtime. The financial fraud, the embezzlement was now the primary thrust. They're building a RICO case against Dad and Ryan, I said to him on the second evening, my voice still a robotic monotone from my phone. The wires in my jaw itched. The surgeon said they could come out soon. Money laundering, wire fraud, the sexier spy stuff is being downplayed. Because it's harder to prove, Jack said, not looking up from the fitness report he was pretending to work on. And because if there really is a high-placed mole, exposing it causes a different kind of scandal. The Navy would rather convict a few greedy civilians than admit its secrets aren't safe. My personal phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. I showed it to Jack. He nodded grimly. I answered on speaker. Maya. It was my father's voice, stripped of its usual bluster, reduced to a tired rasp. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. I know who Nightingale is. The air left the room. Jack was on his feet, moving to stand behind me, listening. I'm listening. Not over the phone. In person. Your mother's garden. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Just you. No, Maya, listen to me. His voice dropped, urgent. The charges they're talking about, life in prison. For me. For Ryan. This Nightingale person, he's the key. He's the connection to the Russians, to the fraud. I give him to you. The real culprit, Ryan and I, were just the money men. We cut a deal. A few years, maybe. We survive. And what do you want in return? I already knew. You talk to Jack. You get his father to make a call. To the right person at the Pentagon. The case goes to civilian court. The military steps back. The espionage charges go away. We plead to the financial stuff. We make restitution. The family endures. It was the same offer repackaged, but now with a specific, tantalizing piece of bait. The identity of Nightingale. Why would you give him up? A bitter, hollow laugh. Because he's leaving us to twist. The communications have stopped. The lawyers he promised aren't materializing. He's cutting us loose. So I'll cut him first. It's just business, Maya. Even now. I looked at Jack. His face was stone, but he gave a minute, almost imperceptible shake of his head. Don't. No deal, I typed. If you know who Nightingale is, tell the NCIS. Make your own deal. They won't deal with me. They want a scalp. Your husband's family, they can make this a trade. A clean trade. Information for mercy. He was pleading now, a sound I'd never heard from Robert Anderson. She's your mother, Maya. Can you imagine her visiting us in a federal penitentiary for the next 20 years? Can you imagine what this will do to her? He was using my mother as a weapon, and it hurt. But the woman in the coffee shop who had chosen survival over her own daughter was harder to summon in my mind's eye. The answer is no, Dad. Goodbye. I ended the call. My hands were shaking. Jack's hands came down on my shoulders, squeezing gently. You did the right thing. Did I typed. He knows the name. The one thing that could clear you, really clear you. He knows a name. He's Sasis, Nightingale. It could be another lie. Another piece in the game. He sighed. But we need that name. We just can't pay his price. An idea, dangerous and clear, formed in my mind. Then we get it another way. Lisa Crawford's contact had come with a warning. If you need to reach me, use the encrypted messaging app on the burner. One time only. Assume it's compromised after. I had the burner phone. I downloaded the app. Sitting in my parked car the next morning, outside a library miles from our apartment, I typed a message. Need to verify identity of Nightingale. Have potential source, but source demands unacceptable trade. Can you provide? The reply came 20 minutes later, just as I was about to give up. Source is likely Robert Anderson. His information is partial and self-serving. Nightingale is not a single identity. It's an access point, a channel, compromised within your husband's chain of command. Find the person who benefits from the failed radar, or who is insulated from the fallout. It was cryptic, maddening. Be more specific. Can't. Being watched. But there is another, a man who built the flaw into the system and grew a conscience. He wants to talk. He's scared. Calls himself Robin. He'll meet you. Tonight, 11 p.m., gravel, lot at the end of Shipwright Road, near the old ferry dock. Come alone. He'll only appear if you're alone. Shipwright Road, an industrial wasteland by the water, mostly abandoned after the shipyard closed. Isolated. Dark. How do I know it's not a trap? You don't. But it's the only way to get the proof that matters. The technical schematics, the original data logs, the evidence that can't be explained away. Your choice. The app logged me out. The session was erased. I sat there, the phone a dead weight in my hand. Robin, the whistleblower, the one who could prove the fraud definitively, bypassing the murky world of emails and spies. Proof that couldn't be dismissed as a forgery. But it was a textbook, dangerous meeting. Isolated location. Late at night. A source who could be anyone. I thought of going to Jack. He would forbid it. He might even call Sims, invoking her order to cease independent inquiries. The opportunity would vanish. I thought of the crashed SUV in the NCIS evidence bay, the brushed-off accident. I thought of the emails discussing me as a problem that could be resolved. I thought of my father bargaining with my family's future, of Jack, his career, and freedom hanging by a thread. I wasn't a soldier. I wasn't a spy. I was a woman with a broken jaw and a broken family. But I was also now the only person positioned to connect all the broken pieces. The corporate fraud, the family corruption, the military conspiracy. I was the nexus. I made my choice. I spent the day in a strange, calm haze. I told Jack I was going to visit a friend from college who lived in Richmond, that I needed a day away, that I'd be back late. He was hesitant, worried, but he relented, burying his concern under a mountain of paperwork. I saw the guilt in his eyes, guilt for being distracted, for not being able to fix this for me. It made my deception hurt, but it also solidified my resolve. I had to do this for him. I drove to a big box store and bought a cheap prepaid phone, a small digital voice recorder, and a can of pepper spray. I felt absurd, like a child playing detective, but the weight of the pepper spray in my coat pocket was real. As evening fell, I told Jack I was leaving. He kissed me gently, careful of my jaw. Drive safe. Call me when you get there. The worry was still there, in the crease of his forehead. I will, my phone said for me. The lie tasted like ash. Shipwright Road was as desolate as promised. The streetlights were few and far between, half of them broken. The pavement gave way to gravel, which crunched ominously under my tires. The old ferry dock was a black shape against the slightly less black water of the Elizabeth River. The gravel lot was empty. I pulled into the far corner, facing the entrance, leaving the engine running. 10:55 p.m. The dashboard clock glowed green. I turned off the headlights, plunging the world into murky darkness broken only by my parking lights and a distant orange security lamp on a warehouse. I was a sitting duck. The thought was paralyzing. Every shadow seemed to move. Every rustle of wind through the dry weeds by the water sounded like a footstep. 11:05, no one. 11:15, still alone. A creeping certainty told me I'd been played, lured out here for nothing, or for something worse. My hand closed around the pepper spray. Then a flicker of light, a single quick flash, like a penlight from the direction of a boarded-up maintenance shed about 50 yards away. Once, twice, the signal. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. I shut off the engine, the silence suddenly immense. I grabbed the recorder, turned it on, and slipped it into my pocket with the phone. Pepper spray in my other hand. I stepped out into the cool night air. The gravel crackled under my shoes as I walked toward the shed. The security lamp cast long, distorted shadows. I could see the dark outline of the river behind the shed, hear the gentle lap of water against pilings. "Robin," I whispered, the sound barely audible through my wired jaw. No answer. I was 10 feet from the shed when headlights erupted from the darkness to my left. Not a car approaching on the road. A vehicle that had been lying in wait, parked in the deep shadows between two decaying warehouses. A large, dark SUV with tinted windows. And it wasn't driving. It was accelerating, straight toward me. Time didn't slow down. It fractured into a series of stark, frozen images. The grille of the SUV, a chrome maw in the security light. The reflection of the orange lamp in its black windshield. The scream of its engine, a vicious roar that tore the night. Instinct older than thought took over. I didn't think to run toward the shed or the water. I threw myself backward toward the relative safety of my own car. A stumbling, graceless dive. I hit the gravel hard, my shoulder and hip exploding in pain. The SUV missed me by inches. The wind of its passage whipped over me. I heard the shriek of tearing metal, the explosive crash of glass, the deafening crunch of impact. It had hit my car, not head-on, but a brutal, glancing T-blow to the driver's side, shoving the sedan sideways with a shriek of protesting metal. Lying in the gravel, gasping, I saw the SUV reverse. It backed up, tires spinning in the loose stone, its front end mangled, one headlight out. It paused, pointed at me again. The driver was deciding. Finish the job. I scrambled on hands and knees, gravel biting into my palms, around the crumpled rear of my car, putting the wreckage between me and the SUV. I fumbled the pepper spray from my pocket, my hands numb with shock and fear. The SUV's engine revved. Then, with a spray of gravel, it whipped around and sped off into the darkness, disappearing down a side alley between the warehouses. Silence rushed back in, broken only by the hiss of my car's ruptured radiator and the frantic thumping of my own heart. The acrid smell of coolant and gasoline filled the air. My car was destroyed. The driver's side caved in, the windows webbed with cracks. If I had been in that seat, if I had waited just a few seconds longer. I was shaking uncontrollably. I tried to stand, my legs buckling. I leaned against the hot, twisted metal of my car, vomiting the protein shake I'd had for dinner onto the gravel. The pepper spray was still in my hand. The recorder in my pocket was still running, a tiny red light glowing. I fumbled for the burner phone. My fingers, slick with cold sweat, could barely dial. Jack answered on the first ring. "Maya, are you there? Did you get to your friends?" I tried to speak, but only a choked, wet sob came out through the wires. "Maya, what's wrong? What is that noise?" I held the phone toward the hissing wreck of the car. "Maya, talk to me. Where are you?" His voice was sharp with alarm. I looked around, disoriented. The street sign was a dark shape. "SH ship." I managed the word a mangled whisper. "Shipwright. Dock. Stay there. Don't move. I'm calling 911. I'm coming." The next hour was a blur of sirens, flashing lights, and questions. Police. An ambulance. Jack arriving, his face a mask of terror that morphed into fury when he saw me, shivering under a foil blanket and the destroyed car. The police took my statement. I told them I'd come to meet someone about a potential real estate deal. A pathetic lie that no one believed, but I stuck to it. That the SUV had come out of nowhere, that it felt intentional. The cop, a tired-looking sergeant, nodded, wrote it down, and said the words I knew were coming. "Looks like a hit and run. Probably drunk driver. Lucky to be alive. We'll look for the vehicle, but without a plate," he shrugged. While a paramedic checked my vitals, Jack knelt in front of me, his eyes blazing. "What the hell were you doing here, Maya? A real estate deal? At midnight? In this place?" He wasn't buying it for a second. I just shook my head, tears of pain and shock and frustration streaming down my face. The tow truck arrived for my car. As it was being winched onto the flatbed, something caught the light from the police cruiser's rack. A piece of black plastic, about the size of a deck of cards, lying in the gravel near the point of impact. It wasn't from my Mercedes. I nudged Jack and pointed. He walked over, picked it up with a tissue from his pocket. He turned it over. It was a housing of some kind, with a partial part number stamped on it, and a logo, a stylized G inside a globe. Globodyne. Jack's face went utterly still. He slipped the fragment into his pocket and came back to me. He didn't say a word. He just helped me into his rental car, thanked the officers, and drove me home in a silence so dense it had its own weight. The confrontation began the moment our apartment door closed behind us. They tried to kill you. Jack's voice was quiet, which was more frightening than any shout. That wasn't a warning. That was an attempt. And you walked into it. After I told you not to. After Sims ordered you not to. I was sitting on the couch, my entire body one massive ache. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving me hollow and trembling. I typed the motion slow. I was meeting a source. Robin, a whistleblower from Globodyne. He had the technical proof. And instead you met an SUV. God, Maya, do you have any idea? He ran both hands through his hair, pulling at it. What were you thinking? That you're some kind of secret agent? That you could outsmart professionals who do this for a living? Someone has to, I typed back, anger giving me a burst of energy. The NCIS isn't listening. They're burying the spy angle. You're being set up to take the fall for the financial mess. And the real traitor is getting away. I was trying to get proof that couldn't be ignored. By getting yourself killed, he roared, finally losing control. He slammed his hand down on the kitchen counter, making me jump. Do you think that helps? Do you think me visiting your grave is better than me being under investigation? What is wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I shot to my feet, wincing at the pain. My brother broke my face. My father sold out my country. My mother chose them over me. And the man I love is keeping secrets about a code name that keeps appearing in emails about ruining our lives. So excuse me if I'm a little desperate for the truth. The words hung between us, the robotic voice giving them an eerie, final quality. Jack deflated, the anger draining out of him, replaced by a profound exhaustion. What secret, Maya? What do you think I'm keeping from you? Nightingale that I typed. My father said the name comes from your past. Lisa's contact said it's someone in your chain of command. The emails show they know how to pressure you. They know you. So tell me, what is Nightingale? He stared at me for a long, long minute. Then he walked to the balcony door, looking out at the night. When he spoke, his voice was flat, detached, the voice of a man giving a mission debrief. Operation Nightingale, Afghanistan, 2014. I was a lieutenant flying close air support for an Army Special Forces team. They had a high-value target, a Taliban facilitator moving through Helmand. Their intelligence came from a local asset, codename Nightingale. The op was a trap. The intel was bad, deliberately bad. The SF team walked into an ambush. 2 men were killed. The asset Nightingale was extracted but was executed by the Taliban a week later as a double agent. The investigation concluded the asset had been turned, that he fed us false intel to set the trap. He turned to face me, his eyes bleak. The existence of the asset, the codename, the fact that the intel was compromised, that was all classified. The official report listed the casualties as the result of unexpected enemy contact. Only the operational team, the command element that greenlit the mission, and a handful of intel analysts ever knew the name Nightingale. It was a stain, a failure. We buried it. The room was cold, so someone from that circle, someone who knew the code name, someone who knew it was a symbol of betrayal, of compromised intelligence. Yes, and they're using it now to send a message to you, a message that they know my secrets, that they can manipulate outcomes, that they're inside. He leaned against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor, a picture of defeat. It's someone who was there, or who had access to the after-action report, a fellow officer, an intel weenie, someone I trusted. Who? I don't know. Do you have any idea how many people that could be? The team, the command staff at Bastion, the analysts at Bagram, the paper pushers at CENTCOM who filed the report. He dropped his head into his hands. It could be anyone, and they've been planning this for a long time. The dinner with Bergman, it wasn't just a feeler. It was a marker. He was letting me know heck knew. By using the Globodyne connection, the Russian money, my screwed-up in-laws, it was all a way to pressure me, to make me pliable, or to destroy me if I wasn't. The scope of it was monstrous, a years-long game of pressure and manipulation, using the tendrils of my family corruption to reach him. The wedding, the assault, it wasn't the cause. It was just another move on the board. My legs gave out, and I sank back onto the couch. I'm sorry. for going tonight, for not trusting you. I'm sorry for not telling you about Nightingale, he said, his voice muffled by his hands. I thought if I could just keep that door closed, that part of my past buried, it couldn't hurt us. I was wrong. It's the thing that's poisoning everything. My personal laptop was on the coffee table. I'd been using it earlier. A notification blinked in the corner, a new email, from an address that was a jumble of letters and numbers. The subject line was blank. With a sense of dread, I opened it. There was no text in the body, just a single attachment, a scanned handwritten note. I opened it. It was a list, dates, times, amounts. Next to them, initials. It took me a moment to recognize it. Ryan's handwriting, a ledger of the money transfers. But this was different from the bank records. This had notes in the margin, in a different hand, precise, blocky printing. RW to acquire travel itinerary for JW. Social engineering via MA. JW resistance noted. Suggest increased pressure on RW re. Family debt. MA's loyalty to JW is primary vulnerability. Exploit during family tension. Wedding optimal. And at the bottom of the page, a single, chilling line in the same block print. If MA becomes persistent problem, asset removal feasible. Wedding chaos provides sufficient cover. The MA was me. The directive to remove me, the asset removal, was dated 3 days before my wedding. The crash tonight wasn't the first attempt. The accident had been planned for the wedding. The chaos Ryan created by punching me had provided the cover. But I hadn't been hurt beyond the punch. The plan had been for something worse. A fall, a car accident leaving the venue. Had Ryan's very public assault forced them to abort a more final solution? I felt the blood drain from my face. I turned the laptop toward Jack. He crawled over, read it, and his face went ashen. They were going to kill you at our wedding, he whispered, the horror in his voice absolute. And Ryan's tantrum, it might have saved your life. The irony was grotesque. My brother's jealous fury might have been the thing that prevented my murder. The email had no signature, but it had come from the same encrypted service Lisa had used. And with it, a new message popped into the inbox. From the same jumbled address. Your husband met Nightingale in Kabul. Ask him about the asset, Samir. Ask him how Samir really died. I looked from the screen to Jack. He was still staring at the scanned note, his body rigid. Jack. My voice was a hoarse croak. He looked up, and the guilt in his eyes was a physical thing, a shroud that settled over him. Samir was Nightingale, he said, the words barely audible. The asset, the one who died. The email says to ask you how he really died. Jack closed his eyes. A single tear tracked through the grime on his cheek. The report said the Taliban executed him, but that's not what happened. He took a shuddering breath. After the ambush, after we lost those men, the team was furious. The SF captain, a guy named Donovan, he thought Samir had played us from the start, that he'd always been a double. He went to the safe house where we were holding him for extraction. Jack opened his eyes, and they were full of a haunted darkness I'd never seen. I was there, doing the pre-flight for the extract bird. I heard the argument, then a single gunshot. Donovan came out. He said Samir had tried to grab a weapon. The official story was Taliban. It wasn't. It was us. We killed our own asset. The confession hung in the air, terrible and complete. And Nightingale now is someone who knows that, Jack finished. Someone who knows Donovan executed an asset in cold blood. And I was there and I didn't report it. I buried it. We all did. It's not just a code name from a failed op, Maya. It's evidence of a war crime. And someone is using it to hold a knife to my throat. The final piece snapped into place. This wasn't just about money or contracts. It was about corruption that went all the way down to the blood-soaked dirt of Afghanistan. Jack's silence, but a decade ago, was the chain they were now yanking. My burner phone, which I'd left on the table, rang. The shrill, unfamiliar trill. We both stared at it. I answered, put it on speaker. You're alive. It was Lisa Crawford's voice, but it was tight with fear. Good. I didn't know about the meet. It was a setup. Robin doesn't exist. They used my channel to get to you. They're cleaning house. Ooh, I typed. I don't know. But they're close. The evidence you gave Sims, it's gone missing from the evidence log. The investigation into your father and brother is being reprioritized. Orders from above. Bergman is on a plane to Zurich as we speak. She was breathing fast. They're shutting it down. The fraud, the espionage, it's being swept into the financial case. A few plea bargains, a fine for Globidine, and it goes away. Your brother and father take the fall for everything. Your husband's career is over regardless. And you? What about me? You're the loose end, the one who won't stop looking, the one who has the ledger now. A pause. You got the email. Yes, then you know. They won't stop. You have to run. Both of you. Now. The line went dead. Jack and I looked at each other across the wreckage of our living room. The wreckage of our lives. The official machinery was grinding to a halt, preparing to bury the truth. The hidden enemy was still out there, with the power to silence investigations and arrange accidents. And they had just tried very hard to kill me. Jack stood up, pulling me to my feet. His hands on my arms were firm, his eyes clear for the first time in days. The fear was still there, but under it was a fierce, determined resolve. We're not running, he said. What do? We fight back, with the one thing they can't bury. He pointed to the laptop, to the scanned ledger, to the damning email. We have the evidence they tried to kill you. We have the link to the war crime. We have the proof of the test fraud. We take it to someone they can't control. Ooh, my father and his friend at the Defense Department, Inspector General. We go over NCIS, over the Navy. We go straight to the top, and we blow this whole damn thing wide open. He grabbed our go bags, the ones we kept packed for his sudden deployments. But we're not doing it from here. We're not safe here. We're leaving. Tonight. Where? I typed. To the one place the military and money can't easily reach. He slung a bag over his shoulder. We're going to Quantico, to the Marine Corps base, to my family. It's time to bring the generals into the war. Quantico Marine Corps base felt like stepping into a different country, a country with its own rules, its own gravity, its own stark, uncompromising architecture. The guard at the gate took one look at General Harrison West's credentials, then at Jack in the passenger seat, and waved us through with a sharp salute that seemed to cut the air. We drove down roads named for battles, past barracks and parade grounds, a world of clean lines and disciplined silence. The general's house was on a quiet street reserved for senior officers, a brick colonial with a manicured lawn and an American flag snapping in the breeze. It was the house Jack grew up in, but standing on the front walk, I felt like a refugee arriving at a fortress. Harrison West met us at the door. He was Jack, 30 years older, the same ice-blue eyes, the same straight posture. But where Jack's intensity was banked fire, the general's was permafrost. He wore crisply pressed khakis and a polo shirt, but you'd have sworn he was in full dress uniform. His eyes took me in, lingering on the faint yellow remnants of bruising on my jaw, the stiffness in my posture. They held no pity, only assessment. Come in, he said, his voice a gravelly baritone. No greeting. No, sorry for your troubles. We stepped into a foyer dominated by a large painting of the Iwo Jima flag raising. The house smelled of lemon polish and old leather. He led us to a study, a room of deep mahogany and books. A large desk was bare except for a blotter and a single, secure landline phone. He didn't sit. He turned to face us, arms crossed. Start talking. From the beginning. Omit nothing. We talked for 2 hours. Jack laid out the sequence. The dinner with Bergman, the wedding, the arrest, the NCIS investigation, the money laundering, the Globidine fraud, the Nightingale emails, the attempt on my life, the cover-up of Samir's execution. I filled in the gaps with my phone, the robotic voice detailing my family's rot, my father's offer, the meeting with Lisa, the ledger, the email about my planned removal. The general listened without a word, without a change in expression. When we finished, the silence was absolute. He walked to the window, looking out at the dusk settling over the base. You kept the assets execution quiet, he said finally, not turning around. His words were directed at Jack, an indictment. Yes, sir. You violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You participated in a cover-up of a potential war crime. I followed the order of my team leader, Captain Donovan. I was a lieutenant. Don't. The general turned, and his eyes were like chips of flint. You were an officer of the United States Marine Corps. You don't get to hide behind rank. You had a duty to report a murder. You failed. He held up a hand as Jack started to speak. Your failure is a matter for another time. Right now, it's a weapon being used against you, against this family. So we will deal with the threat. Then we will deal with your failure. Understood? Understood, sir. The general's gaze shifted to me. Your family, Mrs. West, is a nest of vipers. Your father is a criminal. Your brother is a weak-minded fool. Your mother is an enabler. They have entangled my son in their corruption and brought the shadow of treason to my doorstep. He said it as a simple statement of fact. It hurt, but it was the truth stripped bare. You, however, appear to have a spine, and you're not running. That's something. He came back to the desk, sat, and picked up the secure phone. He dialed a number from memory. Michaels, Harrison West. I need a meeting. Tonight. The package is here. Yes, it's hot. Bring the usual team. My study. 2200. He hung up. Colonel James Michaels, Defense Department Inspector General's office. Old friend. He's bringing 2 of his most trusted investigators and a forensic tech. They'll take your evidence. They'll also take your statements. This goes outside the Navy chain. Outside NCS. The IG reports directly to the Secretary of Defense and Congress. If there's rot, they'll cut it out. Relief, sharp and dizzying, washed over me. We were finally taking it to someone with real power, someone who couldn't be easily squashed by a corrupt admiral or bought senator. What about the trial? Jack asked. Ryan's court-martial for the assault starts preliminary motions next week. The broader charges are still pending, but the NCIS seems to be slow-walking them. The IG will move faster, and they have the authority to intervene in military justice proceedings if they uncover evidence of a wider conspiracy that impacts the case. The general steepled his fingers. Your brother-in-law's trial is about to become the least of his problems. At 2200 exactly, there was a knock. 3 men in civilian suits entered, led by a wiry, sharp-eyed man in his 50s with a close-cropped gray beard. Colonel Michaels. Introductions were brief. The forensic tech, a young woman named Cho, set up a secure laptop and portable scanner. The other 2 agents, Brennan and Holt, took notes. We went through it all again. Michaels and his team were like surgeons, asking precise, probing questions. They examined the USB drives, the scan ledger, the email about Samir. Agent Cho imaged all our devices. They took the Globodyne vehicle fragment and sealed it in an evidence bag. When we finished, Michael sat back, his expression grim. This is one of the dirtiest things I've seen in 20 years. A defense contractor conspiring with a foreign power to defraud the U.S. government, using a money laundering scheme run by a civilian family, and leveraging a covered-up war crime to blackmail and compromise an active duty officer. It's got everything. He looked at the general. Harrison, this goes high. The Nightingale code name, the access to the AR, this is someone with current or recent intelligence community ties. The money trails and the political pressure to bury the NCIS investigation. That suggests congressional involvement. Can you protect them? General West asked, nodding to us. We can put them in protective custody on base. Safe house conditions. But the best protection is to move fast and break this open. Michael stood. We'll start tonight, tracing the email metadata from the Nightingale account, following the money from the Swiss accounts, reviewing the Globodyne test data, and we'll subpoena the phone and travel records of Senator. He checked his notes. Holloway. His name came up in the Anderson contribution logs. He's on the Armed Services Committee and has been a vocal advocate for the Globodyne radar. Senator Holloway. The name landed like a stone. He was a political fixture, a defense hawk with decades in the Senate. If he was dirty, be careful, James, General West said. He has friends at the Pentagon. He's about to have fewer, Michael said flatly. He shook the general's hand, nodded to us. You'll be contacted tomorrow for follow-up. Do not speak to anyone about this. Not your lawyers, not your family. Assume you're still under surveillance. We'll have counter-surveillance, sweep the general's house and phones." They left as silently as they came. The general showed us to a guest room on the second floor. It was Spartan with 2 single beds and a shared bathroom. "You'll stay here until this is resolved. My house is under base security. You're safe. Get some rest." He left, closing the door. The exhaustion hit me like a physical blow. I sat on the edge of the bed, my whole body aching. Jack sat beside me, putting his arm around me. "I'm sorry about my father," he said quietly. "He's not warm." "He's what we need right now," I typed. "He's a fortress." Jack managed a faint smile. "Yeah, he is." He grew serious. "Michaels will find Nightingale. And when he does, you'll have to face what happened with Samir." I finished for him. He nodded, his eyes clouded. "I will, and I'll take whatever comes. But first we end this. For you. For us." That night, I lay awake listening to the distant sound of a bugle playing taps over the base. The familiar, mournful notes floated through the window. I was in the heart of the American military machine, protected by a general, hunted by a shadow. My family was shattered. My face was healing, but the bones would always remember the break. I thought of Ryan, sitting in his cell, believing he could still cut a deal. I thought of my father, calculating his next move. I thought of my mother, alone in that big, empty house. And I thought of the SUV accelerating out of the dark. I finally understood. This wasn't a family drama anymore. It was a war, and I was in the trenches. The next week was a strange limbo. We were prisoners in the general's fortress, safe but isolated. Jack spent hours on the secure phone with his JAG lawyer, preparing for his own eventual reckoning over the cover-up. I had the wires surgically removed from my jaw at the base hospital. The surgeon, a Navy commander, was brisk and efficient. The relief of being able to open my mouth to eat soft food was profound. The scar along my jawline was thin and pink, a permanent reminder. Colonel Michaels checked in daily with terse updates. The forensic techs had traced the Nightingale emails to a computer terminal in the sensitive compartmented information facility, SCF, at the Norfolk Naval Base. Access logs pointed to one man, Commander Alastair Finch, the current head of the base's intelligence fusion cell. Finch had served in Afghanistan with Jack as an intelligence liaison to the Special Forces team. He had access to the after-action report for Operation Nightingale. "We picked him up this morning at his home in Virginia Beach," Michaels told us over a secure video call. The general's study had been turned into a command center. He lawyered up immediately, but we have enough for a material witness warrant. We're holding him at the brig in Quantico. Jack's face was pale. Finch? He was a desk guy. Smart. Quiet. I never would have thought. "The quiet ones often are," Michael said. "We're digging into his finances. So far, clean. But blackmail isn't always about money. Sometimes it's about fear. He knew about Samir. He helped bury it. Bergman could have threatened to expose him. Has he said anything?" I asked. My voice was hoarse and weak from disuse, but it was mine. The sound of it, after weeks of robotic tones, was startling. Not a word. But we have the email trail. We have the computer forensics. We'll break him. Michaels's image leaned closer to the camera. The bigger fish is Bergman. Swiss authorities detained him in Zurich, but his lawyers are already fighting extradition. It'll be a slog. In the meantime, the financial trail is a goldmine. The money from your father's company didn't just go to Globodyne's RD. It went to a super PAC that supports Senator Holloway. And it went to a private account in the Caymans that's linked to Holloway's chief of staff. Bribery at the highest levels. What about the trial? Jack asked. Ryan's court-martial starts tomorrow. The IG is coordinating with the JAG prosecutor. The new evidence will be introduced. The case is no longer about simple assault. It's about conspiracy to defraud the United States, espionage, and attempted murder. Your brother and your father are going down for the whole thing. Michaels's tone held no satisfaction, only grim certainty. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. The court-martial was being held at the Norfolk Naval Base Courthouse, but we would not be attending in person. It was too risky. Instead, we watched via a secure video feed in General West's study. The room was tense. The general sat behind his desk, stone-faced. Jack paced. I sat on a leather sofa, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. The feed showed a sterile, wood-paneled courtroom. Ryan sat at the defense table, looking diminished in his service dress uniform. My father, having been denied permission to wear his uniform due to the charges, wore a somber civilian suit at the adjacent table with his own lawyer. They were being tried together. My mother sat in the front row of the spectators' gallery, alone, a black veil over her face. The gallery was packed with media, sketch artists, and curious military personnel. The trial had been expedited due to the national security implications. The judge, a stern-faced Navy captain, gavelled the court to order. The prosecutor, a JAG commander named Shaw, outlined the case in chilling detail. He started with the assault. The bloody wedding photos were displayed on a screen. My medical records entered into evidence. Then he moved to the financial crimes, showing the flow of money from Anderson Properties to Globodyne Holdings. Then the hammer, the Nightingale emails. The screen showed the damning lines about pressuring JW and the notation about asset removal for MA. A murmur swept the courtroom. Ryan's lawyer, Paul Mercer, objecting vigorously, arguing the emails were hearsay, unauthenticated, part of a scheme to frame his client. The judge overruled, allowing them as business records of the conspiracy. Then Commander Shaw did something unexpected. The government calls Lieutenant Commander Lisa Crawford. Ryan's head snapped up. My father went rigid. Lisa entered the courtroom, dressed in a conservative blue suit, her auburn hair pulled back. She was sworn in. Shaw walked her through her testimony, her employment at Globodyne, her past relationship with Jack, her role as an unwitting asset used by Bergman to gather information, her decision to come forward. She testified about Bergman's instructions to manipulate Ryan, about the doctored test data, about the pressure campaign on Jack. Mercer's cross-examination was brutal. He attacked her credibility, her motives, her bitterness over Jack. Isn't it true, Ms. Crawford, that you harbor a deep resentment toward Captain Jack West for ending your engagement? It was a long time ago. And isn't it true that you provided these so-called Nightingale emails to Captain West's wife in an effort to destroy his career and his marriage? I provided them to expose a crime you participated in. You admit you were an asset for Carl Bergman. You're a co-conspirator looking for a deal. Objection. Shaw barked. Sustained, the judge said, but the damage was done. Mercer had painted Lisa as a vengeful, unreliable turncoat. The prosecution's next witness was more effective. David Chin, my former CFO, looking nervous but determined, laid out the money laundering scheme in meticulous detail. Spreadsheets flashed on the screen. He testified that Robert Anderson had directed the scheme and that Ryan had been the operational manager for the Globodyne transfers. Under cross-examination, he admitted that Ryan seemed to be following orders, but held firm that Ryan knew the transactions were illegal. The trial stretched into the afternoon. The prosecution entered the Globodyne vehicle fragment into evidence, linking it to the attempt on my life. They played the 911 call from the Shipwright Road scene, my ragged breathing audible in the silent courtroom. Through it all, I watched Ryan's face. I saw the arrogance drain away, replaced by a dawning, horrified comprehension. He was realizing the scale of the trap he'd walked into. He kept looking at my father, as if waiting for him to do something, to say something that would make it stop. My father never looked back. He stared straight ahead, a statue of stoic resignation. As the day wore on, the defense began its case. Mercer put Ryan on the stand. It was a desperate move. Ryan, under direct examination, told his story. He was a son trying to save his father's failing business, a brother jealous of his sister's success, a man in over his head. He admitted to the money transfers, but claimed he believed they were for a legitimate real estate deal. He admitted to meeting with Bergman, but said it was just business development. He admitted to the assault, breaking down in tears as he described his drunken shame. I never meant to hurt her like that. I love my sister. I was just lost. It was a performance designed for sympathy, and for a moment it seemed to be working. The courtroom was silent, attentive. Then Commander Shaw stood for cross-examination. He approached the witness, stand slowly, a predator circling. Mr. Anderson, you claim you were unaware that the money you were moving was connected to a defense contract fraud. Yes, you claim you were unaware that Carl Bergman was using you to get to your brother-in-law, Captain West. Yes. Shaw picked up a remote. Let's look at Government Exhibit 42. An email from your personal account to Carl Bergman, dated June 12th of this year. The screen lit up. It was an email from Ryan's account. The subject, JW Travel. The body read, confirmed. JW departs for Fallon NAS on June 24th for 2-week advanced radar integration training. Will be staying at BOQ. Attached is the training syllabus unclassified version. Ryan's face went ashen. You provided Captain West's training schedule and location to Carl Bergman. Why? He said he wanted to send a gift. A congratulations for the wedding. A gift to a man whose face you would break a month later. Shaw's voice was like a whip crack. This email was sent after your dinner with Bergman, where, by your own admission, he asked you to keep an eye on your new brother-in-law. This is espionage, Mr. Anderson. You provided sensitive, albeit unclassified, operational information about a military pilot to a defense contractor under investigation for fraud. Information that could be used to track, to pressure, or to harm that officer. No, it was just a schedule. Just like the $5 million was just an investment. Shaw didn't wait for an answer. He moved on. Let's look at Exhibit 43. A text message exchange from the night of the wedding between you and a number registered to a burn phone. The other party writes, "Is the package in play?" You respond, "Package is distracted. MA is the key. JW is focused on her. Opportunity now." Shaw lowered the remote. Who were you texting, Mr. Anderson? Ryan was shaking. I don't remember. The package was Captain West. MA is your sister, Maya. JW is Jack. You were reporting that the assault had succeeded in distracting Captain West, weren't you? That his focus was on your sister's injury, leaving him vulnerable, weren't you? No, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Were you coordinating with someone to exploit the chaos you created by breaking your sister's jaw? Ryan looked like a cornered animal. His eyes darted to his lawyer, to my father, to the judge. I want to plead the fifth. A gasp went through the courtroom. Mercer was on his feet, objecting, asking for a recess. The judge denied the recess, but allowed Ryan to invoke his right against self-incrimination on the question. The damage was done. Ryan's sympathetic facade was shattered. He'd been caught in active coordination with the conspiracy. The final witness of the day was the surprise. Commander Shaw said the government recalls Captain Jack West to the stand. Jack, watching with me in Quantico, straightened. This had been planned. He had testified earlier about the assault. Now he was being recalled. He wasn't in the courtroom, but his image appeared on a large screen via the secure feed. He was sworn in remotely. Shaw's questions were brief, focusing on Jack's dinner with Bergman, his professional assessment of the Globodyne radar tests. Then Shaw asked, Captain West, are you aware of an operation in Afghanistan, circa 2014, codenamed Nightingale? Jack's face on the screen was a mask of controlled pain. Yes. Can you tell the court about Operation Nightingale? Mercer was up, shouting objections. Relevance. This is a fishing expedition into classified operations. The judge called for a sidebar. After a heated discussion, the judge ruled. The court finds that the origin and use of the codename Nightingale in the present conspiracy is relevant to establishing pattern, motive, and the identity of co-conspirators. The witness may answer, but is instructed to avoid disclosure of classified information. Jack took a deep breath. He told the same story he'd told me. The ambush, the dead Americans, the asset, Samir. His voice was steady, detached. He did not mention the execution. He stated that the asset was later killed by the Taliban. Shah then entered into evidence the email about Samir. Captain, this email states, your husband met Nightingale in Kabul. Ask him about the asset, Samir. Ask him how Samir really died. What is your response to that? Jack's jaw tightened. On screen, I saw the struggle in his eyes. The general, sitting beside me, leaned forward, his expression unreadable. The email is making an insinuation, Jack said carefully. The official record states Samir was killed by the Taliban. But you know differently, don't you, Captain? Another objection from Mercer. Sustained. Shaw moved on. The use of this code name, the reference to this event, does it suggest to you that a person with knowledge of that operation is involved in the conspiracy against you? Yes, and that such a person would be in a position to blackmail you. Objection calls for speculation. Sustained, but the seed was planted. The court now knew that the conspiracy was rooted in a dark, hidden chapter of Jack's past. The shadow in the room grew deeper. The judge called for a recess. The screen went dark. In the general's study, the silence was heavy. Jack put his head in his hands. They know. Not all of it, but they know it's there. The general's phone rang. He answered, listened. Understood. He hung up. Michaels. Finch is talking. In exchange for full immunity, he's given a full confession. He named Bergman. He named the mechanism of the test fraud. And he gave up the man who ordered the hit on Maya. Who? Jack and I asked in unison. Senator William Holloway's chief of staff, Leonard Voss. Finch says Voss was Bergman's direct liaison. The money from the Andersons flowed through Voss's Cayman account to Holloway's super PAC. Voss was the one who, when you wouldn't break, Jack, and when Maya kept digging, gave the order to resolve the nuisance. Voss used Finch's access to get Maya's location from her phone the night of the Shipwright Road meeting. A United States Senator's office ordering my murder. Where is Voss? Jack's voice was deadly calm. In his office on Capitol Hill. The FBI is moving to arrest him now. Michaels is preparing warrants for Senator Holloway's financial and communication records. The wall is coming down. The secure video feed flickered back to life. The courtroom was reassembling. The judge took the bench. But before he could speak, the main doors of the courtroom burst open. 4 men in dark suits entered, flanked by 2 uniformed Marines. At their head was Colonel James Michaels. He walked straight to the prosecution table, conferred briefly with Commander Shaw, then turned and faced the judge. Your Honor, Colonel James Michaels, Defense Department Office of the Inspector General. I apologize for the interruption. I have with me a warrant for the arrest of the defendant, Robert Anderson, on new charges of conspiracy to commit espionage and bribery of a public official. Additionally, the OIG has secured a confession from a co-conspirator that implicates Mr. Anderson in a plot to solicit the murder of Maya West. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scrambled. Sketch artists' pencils flew. My mother let out a wail, collapsing in her seat. My father simply closed his eyes, as if he'd been waiting for this blow to fall. Robert Anderson was pulled to his feet, his hands cuffed behind his back. The Marines led him away, past Ryan, who stared in open-mouthed shock. My father did not look at him. As the chaos subsided, Michaels approached the bench again. Your Honor, in light of this development and the ongoing OIG investigation into matters bearing directly on this case, the government moves to suspend this court-martial and consolidate all charges, military and civilian, into a single federal prosecution. The judge, looking deeply unhappy but recognizing the inevitable, nodded. Granted, this court-martial is suspended indefinitely. The defendants are remanded to federal custody. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. On screen, Ryan was led away, his shoulders slumped, his world finally and utterly destroyed. My mother was being helped from the courtroom by a bailiff, sobbing uncontrollably. The feed cut out. In the sudden quiet of the study, I felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, just a vast, hollow emptiness. It was over. The trial, the public spectacle, was over. My father and brother were going to prison for a long, long time. The men who had targeted us were being rounded up. Jack, came to sit beside me, taking my hand. "It's finished." But the general, still standing by his desk, shook his head. "No, it's not. The battlefield is shifting, but the war isn't over. You have powerful enemies, Jack. A senator, even a compromised one, has friends. The Navy will want this buried. The cover-up in Afghanistan will come out. You'll be court-martialed for your part in it. This is a victory, but it's not the end." He was right. The emptiness inside me filled with a cold, steady certainty. The legal battle might be winding down, but the personal one, the one for our future, was just beginning. Jack would face his own judgment. I would have to learn to live with the ruins of my family, the scar on my face, the memory of headlights in the dark. My phone, sitting on the coffee table, buzzed. A new email notification from the same jumbled address. I picked it up with numb fingers and opened it. There was no text, just a single image attachment. I tapped it. The image filled the screen. It was a photograph, grainy, taken in harsh sunlight. It showed Jack, a younger Jack, in dusty combat gear, standing in a dusty Afghan compound. He had his arm around the shoulders of a young Afghan man in traditional dress, Samir. They were both smiling, but it was the third figure in the photo that stopped my heart. Standing just behind them, also in civilian clothes, was a man I recognized from news shows. Senator William Holloway. Much younger, his hair darker, but unmistakable. The timestamp at the bottom of the photo read, August 12th, 2014, the day before Samir was killed. Below the photo, a single line of text finally appeared. "Ask your husband what the senator was doing in Afghanistan and who gave the order to kill Nightingale." I looked up from the phone, my blood running cold. Jack was watching me, concern on his face. "Maya, what is it?" I turned the screen toward him. He stared at the photo, and all the color drained from his face. The look of shock was absolute, genuine. He had never seen this picture before. "My God," he whispered. Holloway was there. The general came over, took the phone, and examined the image. His face hardened into granite. "This changes everything." Holloway wasn't just taking bribes. He was on the ground. He was part of it. Part of what? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Jack looked from the photo to me, his eyes full of a new, more profound horror. "I don't know, but if Holloway was there, then the order to execute Samir didn't come from Captain Donovan." He met his father's gaze. It came from a United States senator. The general's phone rang again. He answered, listened. His expression grew even grimmer. "Understood. We're on our way." He hung up. "That was Michael's. Leonard Voss is dead. Apparent suicide in his office. He left a note claiming sole responsibility for everything, exonerating Holloway. The FBI says it's too clean. The chessboard had been swept clear. The pawns were taken. The king was still standing, protected." Jack stood, pulling me to my feet. "We have to go. Now, if Holloway is this deep, and he's still free, we're not safe here. Not anymore." "Where?" I asked the same question as before, but now the world felt infinitely more dangerous. The general was already moving, opening a wall safe behind his desk. He pulled out 2 pistols in holsters, handing one to Jack. "The bunker, at the mountain house. It's off-grid, secure. We go dark. We analyze that photo. We find the proof that links Holloway to the murder. Then we burn him down." He looked at me, and for the first time I saw something like respect in his eyes. "You with us, Mrs. West?" I thought of the SUV, of the wires in my jaw, of my brother's fist, of the email that ordered my death. I thought of the man in the photo, smiling with a senator, days before he was murdered. I took the other pistol from the general. It was heavier than I expected. "Cold. I'm with you," I said.